Closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christys Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christys Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you. Bulletins on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is completely unique in the way that we interact with our viewers.
Our audience aren't afraid to have their say. They want their voices heard now, and they've got a channel where that can happen.
I find more and more as I'm wandering around, people come up to me and they say, we saw you on television. I say, oh yes, on what? On GB News.
Hello, are you the famous Sue? The whole crew hid me here now. We came to celebrate.
It's our job to be the eyes and ears of the viewers.
They are part of the GB News family, and I'm pleased to say it's a very large family.
And if people go to the time and trouble of listening and watching, then we've got to do a good job for them.
Well, I'm here right in the epicentre of the protest.
Here we go again. You just tuned in. Where have you been?
It is raucous here tonight.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Hello, good morning, hope you're well. Live from Washington DC, this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America coming up.
But I can do something to give people some breathing space now, some help with the cost of living.
Well, he's back off his hollybobs. The Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, set to start a national tour this week to directly ask the great British public how government can improve their lives. I've got a few suggestions. Is this the kind of hope, though, he's promised, or just a gimmick? Also,
obviously, there are crossings this week, but overall, if you look at the picture in 2026 compared to last year, 2025, there is significant progress.
So more good news today. Hundreds of illegal migrants have crossed the English Channel after windy weather subsided. When he's on his summer tour, will the Prime Minister be hearing voters' anger about Britain's border crisis? Also tonight,
because there definitely is a demonisation of rape, in the sense of it is a spectrum.
A Scottish Green MSP has been accused of trivialising the trauma of rape after comments he made in a viral interview. He says he's been misrepresented. Just who is right in this escalating row? All that in just a second. Also tonight.
On that same vein, in that story with ESPN, you talked about wanting to protect young girls who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Just can you expand your viewpoint on that?
I mean, I think I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense.
This story is exploding stateside. Former NBA player Royce White, he's a bloke, he's a man. He says he's declaring for next year's women's NBA draft, claiming he now identifies as a woman for the purpose of playing professional basketball. Is this trolling or maybe taking a principled stand in sports gender wars? And
here's the real answer to your question, though, what you're saying. Was it good for our Constitution? Was it good for the American people? Was it good for my dad's legacy? No, on all counts.
Well, he's back and he's got a brand new laptop. Hunter Biden says his father's decision to pardon him was damaging to his legacy. So did that fateful decision near the tail end of his leadership damage the reputation of America's 46th president? I'm Ben Leo and this is The Late Show Live. Hello, good morning. Hope you've had a good Saturday. Welcome to The Late Show Live. Joining me this evening in Washington is my panel. Tonight we have former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, and political commentator Hilary Fordwich. And doing the Juicies in London, broadcaster and podcaster Lewis Oakley, and political commentator Benedict Spence. Hello, chaps. Thank you for your company. Lewis, I've not seen you in yonks. Where have you been?
I'm just raising my kids, working hard, but I'm so... You're doing this late night show now. It's a struggle to stay up this late, but I'm doing it for you.
It's the best show, thank you. I hope you're fully fueled with Red Bull and coffee and all other brands available. Thank you, chaps. We'll get to you very shortly. Right, moving on to our main news this evening. Prime Minister Andy Burnham. He's finished his holidays. He's back. Hopefully he's got a nice tan. He's set to start a national tour this week to directly ask the great British public how government can improve their lives. As I just said, I've probably got my own ideas. You have as well. Officials, though, on behalf of Burnham, have said that he's going to be in listening mode as he spends August travelling the country to discuss the pressing cost of living crisis. Well, having promised on the steps of Downing Street to give the public breathing space, he's expected to present a series of measures intended to help with soaring bills. These would include VAT cuts on energy bills, a £2 cut on bus fares announced in his first week in post. Burnham will also focus on improving high streets and will use the summer tour to build his 10-year plan for the country. Again, we talk about this 10-year plan. It's very optimistic, isn't it? Like it's sort of like working out plans and strategies for the fact that you may be in office in 10 years' time. Very hopeful. Well, a spokesperson for the Prime Minister said he'll be getting out of Westminster and meeting people where they are. They added, he thinks Westminster's got used to telling people that everyday hassles, such as hidden pricing and consumers being ripped off, must be accepted as part of life. He doesn't think that's right. That's why he's going to start rolling out a series of pro-consumer cost of living measures to give people some room to breathe. But opposition figures have hit back this evening, accusing the Prime Minister of tinkering. Economic spokesman for Reform UK, Robert Jenrick, who was in the DC studio here just 2 days ago, he said the Prime Minister should scrap green levies and taxes on energy bills and also pledge to rule out tax rises in October's budget. Let's get the thoughts of Labour on this. With me now is former Labour MP Stephen Pound. Stephen, good to see you. Hope you're well and you've had a good Saturday. What's your take on this? Burnham getting out of Westminster, hitting the streets of Great Britain. What will his reception be?
Well, it depends where he's going to go. Particularly if he turns up in a few pubs, he'd probably get a better reception than his predecessor did. If you remember, poor old Keir got barred from every boozer in London and the rest of the country. But today's been a good day for me. It's first day of the football season, in the non-league football season. So it's been a busy day for me. But look, here's the thing. Andy Burnham, he's had about 5 or 6 days holiday. And so, I think, to be honest, I think he deserved a break. But look, he's very, very keen on the idea of
How did he deserve a break, Stephen? He's just started the job.
I know, yeah, but hang on a second. He's been working pretty damn hard up until the election of Makerfield. But look, I think it's crucial. The one thing that everybody says, and Ben, come on, you are one of the people who's leading on this, about politicians not listening to the people, not listening to the man or woman in the street, not listening to the person on the omnibus. What Andy Burnham is doing is actually listening to people. However, that's only half the story. You can listen till the cows come out, but you then have to act on the basis of what you're hearing. And I think he's got a pretty good idea of what people are saying. And I think, by and large, by going there, this is symbolic. He's going to talk to people in Cornwall, people in the north of Ireland, people in Wales, across the country. And I hope he's going to then come back, because the key thing here is not what he does today, it's what the budget does. It's what John Healey does in a couple of months' time in the budget. That is the key thing. And we can't, the idea about tax cuts, to be honest, if we cut taxes, at the present time, when our police force is underfunded, we're not building enough prisons, our defence situation is in a dire state. If we cut taxes, do you honestly think that some of those millionaires who are going to be better off are going to start building prisons for us, are going to start funding the police. No, we've got to actually look at what this country needs. The infrastructure on this nation is creaking at the seams, and that's what it's got to address. And to be honest, Ben, you've been calling us out on this for months.
Yes, OK, well, look, I hope Andy Burnham sticks to his word and he says he's getting out of Westminster, not just physically, but, you know, sort of spiritually as well. Does he know? Does he understand the great British people? Do Labour understand the great British people? In fact, Stephen, I'll ask you now, we're talking about the cost of living. How about a little pop quiz here at midnight on GB News?
Oh,
how
not the cost of milk again.
Is a loaf of white bread, Stephen Pound?
Yeah, 23p.
23p? Blimey, where are you shopping? That's pretty cheap.
West London,
55 to 75p. What about beef mince? 500 grams of beef mince.
I'm sorry, I buy corn. It's a lot cheaper. It's a lot better for you.
OK, politician's answer. OK, and a loose pack of bananas. Say 6 bananas.
God alone knows. They're practically giving them away round my way. So a pack of 6 bananas, about 47 pence.
Yeah, not bad. Yeah, around 60 pence. More pressingly, this is the big concern for the great British public, energy bills. Burnham, of course, he's done a little bit of work on that. Robert Jenrick is saying that you should completely scrap the green levies on energy bills. Do you think that's something that Burnham and the Labour government will do? They seem to have weighed back a little bit on the march to net zero.
I think he has. I think there's nobody. You'd have to complete ostrich with your head in the sand if you didn't believe that we have to do something about net zero. And I'm one of those people who actually wants to see British energy for the British people, and I want to see us generating our own energy. And the thing is, the issue is how we get from where we are today to where we want to be. We don't want to be enthralled to the Russians. We don't want to be enthralled to Saudi Arabia. We want to actually have our own. And we've got the capacity to create our own energy, whether it's solar or wind or hydro. And it's where we get from here to there that's the key thing. And I think the difference between Andy Burnham, he's not being completely absolutist about this. There's an issue of how we actually go from one thing to the other. And it's the transference, the one to step between now and where we are that he's keen on about, which is why the last few drops of oil we're going to squeeze out of the North Sea, out of the Brentfield, from those last two areas of the North Sea. I think that's pretty good. It's the transition that's the key thing. The Kingfisher and what's the other one called? I can't remember.
Is it Rosebank? I think Rosebank is the other oil field.
Yeah,
okay, Stephen, great stuff. Yeah. Good to see you've got your ear to the ground when it comes to the everyday strifes and struggles of the great British public and the cost of groceries. Let's hope Burnham has as well, because it's easy to talk, it's easy to shout from the sidelines, but the proof is in the pudding. Excuse the pun. Yeah, good man. Stephen, thank you so much. Yeah. Enjoy your weekend. But who are you watching on the football today, Stephen? Very quickly.
Look, Hanwell Town versus Malvern away. 2-2 full time.
Oh. All right, great stuff. Stephen, thank you. Have a good Sunday.
Yeah. Cheers, mate.
Take care. Bye. Right, let's get the thoughts of my panel here in DC. Former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, and political commentator Hilary Fordwich. And in London, as we've said, Lewis Oakley and Benedict Spence. Hello, welcome everybody. Niall, I'll start with you. Thoughts on Burnham? I haven't seen you for a couple of months, actually. I've been out gallivanting everywhere. What's your thoughts on Burnham generally, and also this tour? He's back off his holiday. He's now embarking on a Great British tour. He's going to be speaking to the people of Great Britain. Your thoughts on Burnham?
Well, it's great to be back on the show with you, Ben. Just first, I'd like to say, a lot of respect for Stephen Pound, former Labour MP. He's up at still up at 12 a.m. In London, wearing a suit, and that's dedication. So a lot of respect for him.
Good lad.
I disagree with some of the sentiments he's expressed. I have to say, with Andy Burnham, with all of his 5-year, 10-year, plans, great leaps forward and so on, he sounds like a sort of communist, party apparatchik, but with a sort of smiling, friendly face. But what Burnham is actually offering, I think, is just yet more big government. Frankly, overall higher taxes, no real vision actually for advancing economic freedom in the United Kingdom. He should be moving forward with a whole series of wide-ranging tax cuts, deregulation. He should be setting out a vision for Britain that really frees the British people from the shackles of socialist control. Unfortunately, he is a socialist.
But he's a socialist, yeah.
That's a big problem. We've got socialists still in power in the UK, and as long as socialism reigns in Britain, it will deliver only poverty, misery, discontent, bankruptcy, huge levels of debt. woe and despair. So I have to say I'm not very optimistic about the future under Andy Burnham, so I have to disagree with Stephen on this.
All right, Hilary, anything that you like about socialism, or is it as Niall has laid out?
Well, it's exactly as Niall laid out, and also he knows very well that his former boss, Margaret Thatcher, said the problem with socialism is you run out of spending other people's money, and there's no such thing as a free lunch. One of the things I think that Burnham already has gone on vacation, and anybody, certainly in business, if you had a new job, you'd totally and utterly get your nose to the grindstone and be working a lot harder. He's got this also, in addition to all the apt things that Niall said, this ghastly migrant crisis, and I don't see anything and haven't heard anything of his policies that are going to do anything different. And we've just had, under his watch already, 2,300 more illegal migrants have landed on the shores of
Labour would say that the numbers are down on last year.
Well, 2,300 is 2,300, and you have towns, little towns like that near Piddington, where they're using army bases because they don't want to put them up in four-star hotels anymore. You went there and you reported. That's exactly right. So I don't have any faith that he's going to do anything different whatsoever. And this self-aggrandizing tour of him going around listening to the public has already spoken. They don't want the illegals, and they want to have more money in their pockets, and he should roll back regulations and be reducing taxes, and I have not heard that from him.
Yeah, well, he's never going to do that, Lewis. Lewis, he's never going to do that, is he? But, your thoughts?
Look, I think it's great. I have felt for a long time that the focus on everything always being in London, and then people scream at the TV and say, why do these politicians not understand the average person, what's going on outside of the M25? Well, here's a Prime Minister that say, look, I'm coming to see you, I'm going to come tour the UK, want to hear from you, let's see what's going on. Now, OK, I can get the idea of, like, oh, is it a bit of a gimmick? Like, he knows what the biggest issues are, because he's told us when he was campaigning, like, the biggest issues for people are cost of living and immigration. I think he gets it, but I think that there is something important that I like about a politician and a Prime Minister that says, we're not going to do everything in London. There is more to the UK than this one city, and we're going to go out there and we're going to speak to people, and we're going to hear your voices on what you'd like to see happening with the country. And I know that he's maybe taking a bit of flack for this, but so far, I've got to say, he seems to know what he's doing. At the end of the day, his popularity is up, and yeah, there could be the Burnham bounce, you all knew him, but I think he's doing a lot better than people thought that he would.
What makes you think he knows what he's doing? What have you seen from him that makes you think, he knows what he's doing?
Well, they've finally overtaken reform in the polling, depending on what polls you're looking at, obviously.
But that was always going to happen, Lewis.
What do you mean? What do you mean it was always going to happen?
Prime Minister, everybody's feeling hopeful and optimistic. I mean, Benedict, why does a new PM have a poll bounce? I mean, they're not going to go... I mean, it's pretty obvious, isn't it, Benedict?
Well, I mean, largely it's because when you've got a new Prime Minister, it's because the guy he's just replaced was so bad that the politicians finally, listen to the public and went, oh, well, we've got to get rid of you. And the public go, oh, well, thank heavens for that, he's gone. So on the one hand, you could look at it and say it's because Andy Burnham is better at messaging than Keir Starmer was, which he is, to be fair. Or you could simply say people would have taken absolutely anything other than Keir Starmer, which, again, I also think is true. It is a curious thing. I think, he's trying to start off on a positive note by, coming out with things that are slightly more common sense. Things like, his view on assisted dying, or little things like how it is that AI shouldn't be allowed to, be used in sort of interview processes and reading CVs. Little things like that aren't going to set the world on fire, but that people listen to and they go, OK, that's a little bit more human than the last guy that we had, who many of us questioned whether he or not he was alive. But, the thing with all of this is, we know that it's just window dressing. We know that it's trying to be optimistic and it's trying to set things off on the right tone, unlike Starmer, who literally on the first day said, by the way, chaps, there's this huge economic black hole that's sucking everything in. It's going to take 10 years to fix, and we have to let all the prisoners out. Remember that? That was familiar. That was the same thing 2 years ago. So at least Burnham is trying to be positive. I do think he's actually missed a trick slightly, though, because he's decided, I'm going to open number 10 North, and I'm going to put it in Manchester, which isn't actually that far north at all. It's not a capital city. There is, in fact, another capital city in the UK north of London. It's called Edinburgh. He could have put it there, and that's in a country that has for several years now been flirting with the idea of leading the union. You would have thought maybe he could have gone, two birds, one stone, put it there. No, he's just put it in the place where he lives. And that's the thing with Andy Burnham. It's all very vibes-based, and right now I think, the scepticism about what it is underneath all of that, I think is right. We've not seen enough of it, and eventually something's going to come along that's going to collide with the vibes and blow him out of the water, and that's what I feel will inevitably happen.
All right. Well, I'm all for good vibes, good feels. It helps the dark days at least. If everything's burning around you but you feel good, I mean, it's half the battle won. Lewis, just finally, I should hope the messaging is good on behalf of Andy Burnham, because he's hiring probably about half a dozen social media experts on 60k a year to keep pumping out these silly videos. I will say, though, I want Burnham to do well. I love Britain, I love my country. I don't care what colour party he comes from, red, blue, green, whatever. If he does a good job, then I'm happy. I think it's still too early to say Burnham's going to be rubbish, he's going to do this, going to do that. Yes, he's a socialist, but if he does a good job, we should give him credit for that, Lewis, of course.
100%. We all want this country to succeed, and let's not beat around the bush. We're not in a great position as a country, particularly for young people, which I think the focus really needs to be on. If you are a young person that's thinking, I'm never going to be able to afford a house, can't afford a baby, can't get married, can't even leave my parents' house, why would you even participate in the society? This is what JD Vance was saying about young people turning to socialism. You've got to give young people hope, and if he can do that, he might not be able to change all the mechanics around it immediately, but at least if he can make people feel he's going in the right direction, you give people hope.
Yeah, interesting. Just on that point as well, big news stories today on US cable network news is the fact the midterms are coming up and the Trump administration is focusing, their attack line will be on communism. Do not surrender the United States to communism. Big discussions on the likes of Fox News and so on saying, is this the right kind of discussion? Will it win young people over? If young people don't have houses, don't have families, and they see what capitalism is giving them at the moment, then no surprise that polling shows lots of youngsters are turning into commies. So, interesting separate discussion. Guys, thank you very much for now. We'll catch up in just a tick. Still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight.
Obviously, there are crossings this week, but overall, if you look at the picture in 2026 compared to last year, 2025, there is significant progress.
Migrants have crossed the English Channel into the land of milk and honey today after windy weather subsided. When he's on his summer tour next week, will the Prime Minister, will Andy Burnham be hearing voters' anger about Britain's border crisis? All the details on that just after the break. Don't go anywhere.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Like death, like taxes, something else that's guaranteed is the arrival of illegal migrants in Britain. Hundreds more today arriving across the English Channel after windy weather subsided. After a 5-day lull, which, by the way, all the lefties were celebrating on X and social media, 250 migrants arrived on British soil in 5 boats. GB News can confirm that a migrant dinghy made it across the Channel undetected this morning. Completely under the radar, just sailed across until it was only a couple of miles off the Kent coast. This will take the total number of illegal arrivals so far this year to over 14,500. Let me just repeat that, 14,500 just this year alone. Coming to a community near you, maybe somewhere like Piddington, a quaint little English village. Lovely, great people down there, beautiful, of just 350 people. And the government want to put 1,250 male migrants in their village. So coming to a village or an HMO near you very soon, I suspect. Elsewhere, today's crossings also take the total number of arrivals under Prime Minister Andy Burnham to more than 2,300. So when he embarks on his listening tour next week all across Britain, is the PM likely to hear voters' concerns about Britain's border crisis? With me now is former Downing Street advisor Rob Midgley. Rob, good to see you. Thanks for coming back on the Late Show Live. 14,500 this year, not great, but do we give Burnham a little bit of slack, a bit of leeway, some time maybe to fix this?
No, he's got one hell of a job on his hands right now, but a lot of people often forget that these people who are crossing the Channel, they're not migrants. These people who cross the country, who cross the Channel into our country are criminals. You know, they've broken the law by entering our country illegally to start with. They shouldn't be allowed to claim asylum from breaking in illegally. In my opinion, they should be applying for asylum or visa like anyone else from their country of origin. I have friends from Hong Kong, Canada, Singapore. They are paid through the roof for their visas to live and work within our country. And these so-called asylum seekers or migrants, they're making a mockery out of the system. And it's so unfair on those legitimate people who come to live and work and pay to be here, Ben. And in my opinion, firstly, these NGOs who are helping people cross the Channel, they need to be named and shamed. Because I hear all these stories all the time, I'm sure you have as well, all these NGOs who are bringing the people up, and we don't know anything about these NGOs, they need to be stopped. That's the first thing. Secondly, these French boats, the French police need to stop these boats from leaving. I'm sure you saw, and all the viewers saw, Chris Phillips's video, what was it, last week, where he questioned the French police on the beaches, and they said, oh, we have to let them go. So what are we paying for? Why are we paying through the roof for the French to be stopping them when they're being told to let them all go? And then thirdly, as soon as these boats land in the UK, these people need to be arrested, they need to be questioned by Border Force. You know, you go to an airport, if you don't have proper documentation to enter the country, you are denied access to that country. So why aren't we doing that with these people? Why are they being processed? Because no other country does this sort of thing. You know, you do other processing outside of a country through an embassy where they lived. So what are we doing with all this processing? Why is it not happening in their country of origin? You know, huge questions about this, and it's become completely unmanageable. We're paying through the roof, and to be quite honest, it's just an absolute joke right now, Ben.
Yeah, you make some great points, Rob. The NGOs, I consider them criminal networks. They're helping criminality, they're aiding and abetting it. France as well, quite controversial maybe. I don't really care. I think they're a hostile state and they should be treated as such. But also, Labour would say, look, crossings in the first 6 months of this year, 7 months, are down 44% on last year, although Burnham's not really been talking about the small boats at all. Can Labour take any credit from that, a victory lap maybe from the 44% reduction? And why isn't Burnham talking about illegal migrants?
Well, a lot of the numbers that they actually use, they're comparing against people who are leaving the country as well, Ben. You look into those facts, those figures, and actually it's being compared against the net migration rates. And at the moment, we have an absolute brain drain going on in our country where people are moving off to like Dubai and Thailand, to the US, all over the place. And that's balancing out the figures. So actually, yes, we're still bringing more people in, but it looks like there's less people coming in because more people are actually leaving. So I'd question all the figures that they're releasing right now and really scrutinise it properly.
Yeah. Does this have anything to do, illegal migration, the money we're spending on asylum hotels, HMOs, all these massive contracts, these camps in the likes of Piddington, which, by the way, that site in Piddington in Oxfordshire will cost, I suspect, more than £100 million to renovate and develop, because it's not existing accommodation. It's an asbestos-ridden dump that was never used as accommodation. It was a former munitions site. So all this money, has that got anything to do with cost of living, the topic of conversation Burnham will be talking about across the UK next week?
I mean, the news stories the other day was they want to raise tax further. I mean, right now, I mean, you've seen the figures for yourself, that the welfare bill of the country is billions of pounds ahead than the national income of the country. And that is not sustainable whatsoever. And that won't be solved from raising tax. People are at the absolute brink. I mean, we're quite lucky at the moment. It's summertime, the sun's out, people's way of thinking has simmered slightly. But as soon as the weather gets bad in the UK, people get angry, really, really angry. People on the edge, they're suddenly having to pay more on bills in energy, and electricity, their heating throughout the winter. The cost of food goes up. People are stacked against this every single day. And it's okay him going out to question the country, like what their thoughts are during the summertime, because they're like, the news agenda is probably quite clear right now. But, people are really angry about having to pay so much money and see so little in return.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you get for your money? I've always said, I think, I'd be prepared to pay more tax if I saw I was getting something decent in return for it. I'm not now when I see what they spend the money on, but there we go. Robert, great stuff. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Robert Midgley. We'll catch up soon. Let's get thoughts of the panel quickly. In London, Benedict Spence, Lewis Oakley, and in DC here as well, Hilary Fordwich and Niall Gardner. Lewis, I'll start with you very quickly. Robert's got a point, hasn't he? When the Brits are struggling to pay their bills, put food on the table, feed their kids, pay their energy bills, and then you have, today, 250-odd migrants again coming into Britain, to the land of milk and honey, with accommodation, with... Alex Armstrong had a great story this evening about mobile phones and SIM cards from charities. It's all a bit of a racket, isn't it?
Yeah, look, the feeling from the public is clear. There's no getting away from that. People don't like this. People don't like the money that's being spent. People don't like that it makes a mockery of the border around our country. I do think, as you've kind of been saying, that Labour have made some progress on this. A 43% reduction in crossings is a good thing. So they can actually say, look, despite what you think of our situation with the French, despite what you think of all of this, the plan is working. It's not finished yet. There's still another 57% to go, but they are going in the right direction. I think that's important. I also think that, people on the left and parties on the left, we do have to grapple with this issue, because it's very clear. If the Labour government cannot get a hold of this in a way that the British public are happy with, there are going to be no left-wing parties in government when the next election comes. I do think that this is a really important issue. And let's not forget, people are being trafficked here. And I think the big thing that we're not talking about enough is that I think there used to be 7 people on these dinghies, and now the numbers on them is a dangerous level. This is really bad. We're seeing that there were fires. We're seeing that there are people dying. There is a lot going on that we need to get a hold of. It's not the lefty compassionate thing to keep this going. And I think that the left does actually understand that. We have to get a grip of this.
Benedict, do you think the left care? I don't think the left really generally care about small boat migrants.
It's tricky because I think that there are some people in some parts of the country who you would once upon a time have called part of the traditional left who perhaps are still a bit too dyed-in-the-wool to make the transition to another party. But ultimately, I think that a lot of what you might call the more sort of modern metropolitan left actually thinks that all of this is a good thing. And on the one hand, they'll turn around to you and say it's because it's the compassionate thing, but actually what it is it's because it's part of a much broader swathe of migration, and they think that that's a good thing. They think changing the face of the country is a good thing. That's what Tony Blair was very overt about. The problem with all of that is when you then try and row back on it and go, well, look at the numbers of illegal migrants. They are coming down, or they're only XYZ. The problem is if you've already let it get to a certain critical mass over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, however long it's been, and you're talking the sort of numbers that we are, people actually stop conflating, they stop thinking of it purely in terms of illegal migration. They look at it as migration as a whole, and one, they don't like the numbers of people who are coming legally or illegally, and two, even if the numbers are coming down, coming into the country, what they look at is the numbers of people who are already here, again, legally and illegally, and they say, I don't like that either. And if nothing's done to address this, you'll get to a position, it will happen. I know that lots of people would like to put their fingers in their ears and pretend it's not going to happen, but at some point, a country in Europe, probably not this one first, but somewhere in Europe will decide, actually, measures need to be put in place to move people back home, again, who came here illegally, but also legally. And that is the point that we are told we ought to avoid. We have to, that's fascism and it's on the march. It's going to happen unless somebody gets a grip on this.
Hillary, you're ready to unleash like a Rottweiler caged outside a mansion somewhere.
How do you
Off
know?
you go.
How do you know? Yeah, I think one of the issues here is something that Nigel Farage actually has said a lot, which I think is absolutely appropriate, which is it's just fundamentally unfair. You have pure British people that still don't have homes, that are waiting on housing lists, and they're seeing illegals coming in and being given free housing, free food. Now, of course, they're trying to move them out of the 4-star hotels, which the average British person couldn't even afford to spend one night in, putting them into these little towns, like, of course, you went to Piddington there, Ben. But when you see how fundamentally unfair it is, and you're seeing tax dollars, all the things that people can't afford, and you look at what just happened just recently. Alex Armstrong was one of our GB News team's members. He suffered from this. You see the infrastructure, the flights being cancelled, the train system not working. You see Britain is broken fundamentally. Why? Because there aren't the taxed pounds, the Treasury doesn't have enough money to solve all these issues, and the money is going to illegals. That is what is fundamentally wrong. It is that Britain is broken because all the money is going on this sort of welfare. That is what is wrong with the country.
Well, I think I would say, I agree with you, we need to be spending money on better projects, but I think, for example, asylum accommodation is only, off the top of my head, maybe it's something like $7 billion a year or something, which it's a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things...
It would solve the NHS lines, that's for certain. And my point is this: why on earth are we housing them? It is absolutely ludicrous, and
they should be detained.
But I always say this. I always say, look, if this was a Second World War, this is basically an invasion, and they're actually making fun of us. Look at all of the videos that have gone viral with some of these men from Africa saying, "We're coming to your country," and they've said, "We're going to get housing, we're going to get food, we're going to come for your women." That's what they've said online.
Niall?
Well, I think that reform actually are absolutely right. Nigel Farage talked about the use of military force to defend Britain's borders,
yes,
and to send the migrant boats back. Actually, this is the only way to deal with this. You've got to deploy the Royal Navy. You've got to use force wherever necessary. Donald Trump has secured the nearly 2,000 long US southern border, and there's zero illegal migration into the United States across that southern border. This can be achieved if you have the right willpower. Also, these absolutely awful far left-wing NGOs, they have to be shut down, I'm frank.
Someone needs to look into them. Maybe I'll do it.
They're aiding and abetting illegal migrants, and they are fundamentally undermining the British people's action. Urgently needs to be taken, and also measures have to be taken against the French government. They're aiding and abetting the invasion of Britain here.
And they should only be paid for those they stop. They shouldn't be paid we don't give them any money until they actually stop people.
Yeah, they shouldn't be paid at all. They do nothing.
Right, exactly.
Right. A Home Office spokesperson has said this government is bearing down on dangerous small boat crossings and restoring control at our border. Joint efforts have seen over 46,000 crossing attempts prevented and 1,100 boats and engines seized since the election. We're making progress with the number of small boat crossings down this year and the lowest number recorded for the month of July since 2020. But we must go further, which is why we've signed a payment by results deal, as you were saying, Hilary, with the French to put 40% more boots on the ground on French beaches. Very good. Right, still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight.
Because there definitely is a demonization of rape, in the sense of it is a spectrum.
A Scottish Green MSP has been accused of trivialising the trauma of rape after comments he made in an interview which has now gone viral for all the wrong reasons. He says he's been misrepresented, easy for me to say. Just who's right in this escalating row, and why are a lot of Green politicians just absolutely bonkers? Answers on a postcard. Back in just a tick on The Late Show Live.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo, every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Right, a Scottish Green MSP has been accused of trivialising the trauma of rape after comments he made in a viral interview. Hugh Manavan, the MSP for the Edinburgh and Lothians East region, has since responded to the comments they made in a clip which circulated widely on social media on Saturday.
And I think our distaste towards rape is towards rape. It's towards the idea of and the act of rape, not towards the myth of this monster rapist, as now we've, born to be thinking of it that way. Because there definitely is a demonization of rape, in the sense of it is a spectrum.
OK, so I don't know what that guy's banging on about, saying there's a spectrum of rape. Reform in Scotland have called for the Scottish Greens to suspend the whip from that chap and start investigation following the comments. The under fire Green MSP has said his comments have been clearly misrepresented and taken out of context by Reform. With me now is member of the Scottish Parliament for the South Scotland region, Senga Beresford. Senga, good to see you. Have Reform taken the comments out of context?
Absolutely not. Rape is a life-changing and serious sexual crime affecting women and men for the rest of their lives. I find it utterly shocking that a man serving as a member of the Scottish Parliament thinks this is a spectrum, completely minimising the severity of the crime.
What is Reform going to do then about this? They've complained to the Greens in Scotland. Do you think the Greens will suspend the whip from this guy? Because, as I said just before the break, it seems to me the Green Party is going down some twisted, deranged path, which I think the likes of Caroline Lucas, who was the MP for my neighbouring constituency back home in Brighton, Brighton Pavilion, nothing like the Green Party that she was leader of back in the day.
Absolutely not. The co-leaders of the Green Party, Ross Greer, Gillian Mackay, there is silence, right? These vile comments need addressed. So we are waiting. We have put out there that we need this addressed immediately. It can't go on. The excuse for these words is not acceptable. It was an hour-long podcast. He's never apologised for his words. And I think it really shows you the kind of person he is and where the Green Party's at as well. That's their thoughts as well, the fact that they haven't apologised for it.
OK, how are the Greens getting on in Scotland? Who is this kind of person, this kind of MSP appealing to? He's been elected, so somebody's voted for him. So who are the Greens appealing to in Scotland?
Well, I'm as shocked as you are. I have not got a clue, to be honest with you. I don't know what they stand for. It's certainly not the environment anymore. You rarely hear them talking about that. And sex crime has gone up. It's highest in Scotland, so it is since 1971. It's gone up 48% in the last decade, and yet they're minimising the severity of this, using these words that are not acceptable.
In his defence, he said in a comment that he clarified the spectrum remark, saying he intended to highlight how society has a narrow definition of what rape and sexual violence is. He said the point I made about demonisation was that not all rapists fit a stereotype and that all kinds of men can and do commit it. Yes, and it's been taken out of context. I mean, it just sounds like he's spoken a load of word salad in this interview, which, by the way, was last year. It was February 2025, and now he's just digging a bit of a further hole. Senga.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I mean, an apology for starters should have came out, but the fact that he hasn't apologised means he still stands by those words.
Yeah. Senga, thank you so much. Appreciate you staying with us on the Late Show Live on GB News, and hopefully we'll catch up soon. Senga Beresford, MSP for Reform up in Scotland. Thank you. Let's get the thoughts of Benedict and Lewis in London on this. Lewis, just talking about the Greens as a wider point, I mean, absolutely tanking in the polls. Zach Polanski, gaff after gaff after gaff. I think he's finished. What is the future really of the Greens, not just in Scotland, but overall over the next couple of years?
Well, I think they've got a lot of support. They clearly, are doing well with a certain demographic. Let's see if that can translate into electoral success. Who knows? I mean, on this specific comment here, I mean, what he said is indefensible, really, and especially when you look at the statistics as we have them. I think it's something like 438 days from the report of rape on average to a charge going. I think our conviction rate is something pathetic, like 3.4%. So that is ridiculous. That said, I am a podcaster, and I've been there when you've done really long interviews and something can be clipped and taken out of context. Don't see how it could have been taken out of context. I mean, him saying it's demonized, I would argue it's not demonized enough, as the rape statistics clearly show. I think when he was talking about a spectrum, though, I think that we do need to look at ourselves as a country, though, because it clearly is something that is treated when it comes to how seriously we take it as a spectrum, because I think the point he's trying to say is that if someone drags someone off into an alleyway, we take that very seriously. When it's someone the victim knows, which is the majority of cases, which is, you know, a husband, a boyfriend, a colleague, a friend, whoever it is, that we seem to not take that as seriously. And I do also think there's a difference between men and women here as well, because whenever we get those reports of a 34-year-old female teacher that's had an affair with a 14-year-old boy, that is treated very differently to when the genders are reversed. So I do think we need to have a look at how we treat rape and realise that, you know, if someone is assaulting you against your will, doesn't matter any of the context, it is still as bad, and it all needs to be treated the same. We really need to get those conviction levels up.
Yeah. Benedict, any thoughts on this?
Well, rape clearly does exist on a spectrum in this country, and we know that because the sentencing guidelines reflect that. There are 3 different categories for rape in this country based on severity, and the sentencing ranges from 4 years to 19 years or life imprisonment. So whether or not people... I know that lots of people would like to get very sort of exercised by this and say it's a disgraceful thing and all rape is equally as bad. But demonstrably, it can't be the case in our own justice system. So if people are upset about that, they should maybe take a look at the justice system. Maybe they should petition their MP to have the laws changed on that and maybe have a blanket sentencing system for rape. But I don't think people would then like that very much. You can't actually equate, for instance, say, a child rapist who abducts a small child and takes them off and imprisons them, and somebody who perhaps has a little bit too much to drink. The issue of consent is blurred, and the next morning you wake up and you find, oh, one person hasn't consented. Those two things are clearly not the same. So whilst I think it's actually, you know, this particular Green SNP, I think, just as an aside, shouldn't be a member of the Scottish Parliament because they are not British. You know, first and foremost, I think that that is actually pretty nuts that we've actually allowed this to be the case, that somebody can waltz into the country and just magically become an elected official. But actually on this particular issue, I'm not really sure what the controversy is about. Our legal system has recognised for decades, for centuries, that there are, you know, varying levels of severity about this, and simply to get upset, you know, because lots of people say all rape is equally bad. Well, nobody's saying that it's good here. Absolutely nobody's saying that it's good. But there are certainly some things that you can't equate to others. I don't think that's unfair to say at all.
OK. He did say in his comment, I mean, it's pertinent to what you just said. He said, when talking about a spectrum, I was making the point that laws often take a narrow definition of what rape and sexual violence is, which often allows it to continue without consequence. A full viewing of the interview clarifies this. I will say, though, Benedict, you're, you know, obviously making a point there, backing him up, but Labour, the Tories, maybe you'd say they would do politically, but all the parties have come out and slammed him. So anyway, let's see what viewers think. GBnews.com/your say. The Scottish Greens MSP Q Mananavan, the guy in question, has said this clip has been clearly misrepresented and taken out of context. The points I made about demonisation was that not all rapists fit a stereotype, as I've said. And you can check out his full interview online if you care. Right, still ahead tonight on The Late Show Live. The Mail goes with fury over royal funeral plan for shamed Andrew on the front pages tomorrow. Should Prince Andrew, or Andrew Mountbatten Windsor as he's now known, should he get a state funeral, a royal funeral? More papers after the break. Back in a sec.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Let's take a quick look at the front page of tomorrow's Mail, shall we? Mail on Sunday, which leads with a story about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew, of course, fury over royal funeral plan for shamed Andrew. As we reveal, ex-Duke will be given ceremonial send-off when he dies. Epstein victims say it's an embarrassment to the Crown. Hilary Fordwich, should Andrew have a royal funeral?
Absolutely not. I think this is a total and abject waste of the public's taxes, and although he does deny all allegations, certainly what we've seen from the victims, and actually I would say photographic evidence, there was leaning over the girl on all fours, there was him being held up by 5 women, and he actually had one of these parties at Sandringham, let alone the photograph with Virginia Giuffre. So there were at least, at a minimum, 3 photographs. There were victims' testimonials. So I think that it would be much better for the royal family. They've already stripped him of his title. They've ousted him from Royal Lodge. Much better to let him go quietly. Just let him pass away very, very quietly. The public is not for him.
Yeah, I will say no, I don't agree with this argument. However, some may say, well, he's never been found guilty of anything. In a court of law, he's always denied the allegations. Although he did pay 12 million quid.
Yeah, I very much agree with Hilary there, and I think that with Andrew, considering the huge amount of negative attention, I think, that has been paid to the royal family as a result of his actions, whether or not he's been found guilty in a court, he should just receive a private burial when he passes away. There should not be some kind of ceremonial service for Andrew. Okay. He has been, in a way, largely disowned, frankly, by the royal family. And he has been cast out into the wilderness. He does not deserve some kind of official royal send-off at all.
Okay, some quick comments. Bobby Dazzler has said, why give Andrew airtime at all? Should have a media blackout when it happens. And Claire, good morning, Claire. You said, as detestable as he may be, should we not wait until Andrew is actually dead before considering his funeral? I think, well, they just plan for royal stuff. Thank you, guys. Keep those comments coming in. More coming up in the next hour, including this.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's another sunny and fairly hot day to come in the south. Further north, though, a different story. We've got a band of rain slowly edging southwards with some brighter skies following from the north. So a fairly wet morning for parts of Northern Ireland, certainly central and southern Scotland. The rain just creeping its way southwards into northern England as well through this morning. It will turn more showery into the afternoon, and whilst there'll be a few showers in northern Scotland too, many other parts of Scotland will have a brighter day to come compared to yesterday. Now, across southern parts of the UK, particularly Wales, central and southern and southeastern parts of England, it will be a sunny and fairly hot day to come, temperatures into the low 30s for some of us. But I think in the north it will be a fresher feeling day compared to yesterday, and certainly across the Northern Isles, Shetland and Orkney will see quite breezy conditions once again, with a few showers lingering on into this evening. Otherwise, a mixture of cloud and sunny spells across the rest of Scotland and Northern Ireland this evening, and the rain tending to become a bit more showery and lighter across northern England too. Otherwise, a fine end to the weekend across Wales and the rest of England, with a good deal of late evening sunshine. And it's set to be a fairly warm night in the south, temperatures only slowly falling away after today's high temperatures, so remaining at between around 16 and 18 degrees Celsius perhaps in the towns and the cities. A fresher feeling night though further north, one or two showers still coming into the very far northeast of Scotland, but temperatures in the countryside in more northern areas probably falling down into the mid to high single figures. Now, there could be one or two mist and fog patches in the southwest of England first thing on Monday morning, but those will quickly clear, and then for most it's set to be a dry and fine day on Monday, a mixture of cloud but also some prolonged periods of sunshine. Still quite cool and breezy in the northeast of Scotland, and still one or two showers possible here. Otherwise though, temperatures in the high teens, low 20s in more northern parts of the UK, and not as hot as today in the south, but still very warm indeed.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, live from Washington DC. This is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America coming up tonight.
But I can do something to give people
some breathing space now, some help with the cost of living.
Holiday finished. Prime Minister Andy Burnham now set to start a national tour this week to directly ask the public how the government can improve their lives. I've got a few tips. Is this the hope and change he promised, or maybe just a gimmick? Also tonight.
On that same vein, in that story with ESPN, you talked about wanting to protect young girls who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Just can you expand your viewpoint on that?
I mean, I think I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense.
Massive row brewing here about biological men in women's sports. That lady was Sophie Cunningham. She plays in the women's NBA. She's been getting some flack in recent months and weeks because she wants men to stay out of women's sports. However, now she's joined in her fight by a former NBA player, Royce White. He's a bloke. He's about 6'8". He's on your screen now. He says he's declaring for next year's women's NBA draft by claiming he now identifies as a woman for the purpose of playing professional basketball. Is this trolling or taking, as I think, a principled stand in sports gender wars? And
our country's doing so well. Those ships are flowing out of the Hormuz Strait like nobody's ever seen before, actually.
Well, that was then, but this is now. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps says the Strait of Hormuz will only reopen if Washington accepts Tehran's conditions, its latest litany of conditions, I'll say. With President Trump likely to disagree, is there any end in sight for the 5-month-old conflict? And
on this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 49. The nomination is confirmed.
President Trump's former personal lawyer, Todd Blanche, has been confirmed as the new US Attorney General after a razor-thin Senate vote today. What does this mean for the future of the Epstein files and Trump's anti-weaponization fund? Also tonight.
Here's the real answer to your question, though, what you're saying. Was it good for our Constitution? Was it good for the American people? Was it good for my dad's legacy? No, on all counts.
That man there, Hunter Biden, says his father's decision to pardon him was damaging to his legacy. So did that fateful decision near the tail end of Joe Biden's premiership damage the reputation of America's 46th president? I'd argue he didn't really have much of a reputation to damage in the end anyway. I'm Ben Leo and this is The Late Show Live. Good morning, happy Sunday. Welcome to The Late Show Live. Joining me in Washington this evening is my panel. Tonight we have former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, and the political commentator Hilary Fordwich. And in London, broadcaster and podcaster Lewis Oakley, and the political commentator Benedict Spence. Thank you, chaps. Appreciate it. I will say tonight, viewers have been emailing and commenting on your say, saying, what a great panel we've got tonight. Hilary, Niall, Benedict, Lewis as well. So thank you very much for your company. Right, let's move on to our main news this evening. And this is it's a cracking story. I love it. Former NBA player Royce White says he's declaring for next year's women's NBA draft, claiming he now identifies as a female for the purpose of playing professional basketball. There he is on your screens. He's 6'8". He's massive. He's built like a brick. You know what? He's the former first-round pick in the NBA, which if you're not familiar with what the NBA is in the draft, basically when he was playing, he was all the NBA team's first choice for them to join his team. He was a quality player. He says he'd be unstoppable in the women's NBA and has vowed to use the women's changing room if allowed to compete. White, who is seeking the Republican Senate nomination in Minnesota, says he wants to expose what he sees as flaws in transgender inclusion rules in women's sport. And it all comes after former NBA star Enes Kanter, Freedom, also announced plans to declare for the 2027 Women's NBA Draft as well, amid the growing row and conversation over transgender athletes.
After careful consideration and reviewing the current eligibility guidelines, I am officially declaring myself a WNBA prospect. If simply declaring who you are is all that's required, then I meet every single requirement necessary to compete in the WNBA. My team and I have carefully examined the WNBA's eligibility criteria and governing framework surrounding self-identification and inclusion. Based on the current guidelines, I can and am officially declaring my eligibility for the upcoming WNBA draft in May 2027.
Well, I think that's fine, isn't it? He looks quite ladylike and feminine, and that's all you need these days. You just say, I'm a woman, and you're a woman. That's it. I mean, that's how it works now. So Hilary, I'll get to you in just a second. Hold your horses, one sec. With me now is political commentator Anthony Rispo. Anthony, that's how this works, isn't it? Sophie Cunningham, the women's NBA star, has been receiving flack for saying that she wants to protect the integrity of women's sports. The women's NBA, all the players' unions and so on have failed to back her. There's lots of confusion about what defines a woman in the women's NBA. So now these two blokes, former NBA stars, are saying, oh yeah, I'm a woman. So, I mean, the women's NBA had it coming, no?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can only take absurdity for so long and until you put it forward as a tactic that exposes it on itself. I mean, we've been living with this for such a long time. We've been told to believe that up is down and down is up and just to take it. And so now you have people who are wising up and doing, I think, what is the right thing to do and just expose it for what it is through absurdity. You expose the underlying logic. You know, if subjective gender identity is allowed to override a sex-based category, you need a principled reason why that rule cannot be invoked opportunistically by the very group the boundary was designed to exclude. So, I mean, it makes sense to me what they're doing. I think it's effective.
Yeah. You have people such as Megan Rapinoe, who is the women's football soccer player in the United States. She's retired now, but she was a trailblazer for the women's national team. Yeah. She's far left. I mean, she's a massive socialist commie. But she is all for having trans women in women's sports. Why is that such a problem? Why is it an issue if these two guys, these former NBA players, 6'8", 6'9", used to slam dunk buckets, you know, week on week? Why is that a problem playing against women? Because the likes of Megan Rapinoe don't see a problem with it.
I mean, the problem, it's almost so silly to even articulate what the actual problem is. It just feels so odd to even sit here and say that there's a disparity between the strength of the two sexes when it comes to, you know, men and women. I mean, to sit here and just say that out loud is just so odd to me. That is the problem. That males are have a certain kind of acuity physically, a capacity that the female body doesn't. But, you know, within their respective categories, that's where they belong in terms of competition, and that's all well and good. But to have a 6 foot plus, you know, man involved in the picture, that there's an advantage there that's just very clear. So.
What do you think the women's NBA will do now? They've released a statement basically saying to everyone who loves this game, the women's NBA represents 200 plus individual people with different cultures, lifestyles, opinions and so on. We embrace justice, equity, diversity and inclusion. Those are the values that unite this union and allow it to protect women's sports while creating transformational change. Hate, abuse and demonisation of any person or group, including transgender people, only fuels fear, division and harm. We'll continue to have these hard conversations. That's the Women's NBA Players Association. So it seems they still don't get it. Even though we've got two former male players saying, I'm going to declare myself for the draft, they still don't get it. What is wrong with these people?
You know what? I hate to be polemic, but I'm going to be. They're just so upside down. Nietzsche talked about this. So basically, in one way or another, just being taught to hate yourself. Basically, by the resentful. The resentful among us will teach us how to hate ourselves, and that's what's happening here. There's no other explanation. It's a psychological phenomenon. It's a resentment that has motivated people like organizations like that to hate themselves internally. It's a mass psychosis, I think.
Yeah, well said. I think on that bombshell, we'll leave it there. Anthony, thank you so much. Great speaking to you. Anthony Rispo, political commentator. Let's get the thoughts from my panel here in DC. Hilary and Niall, the Women's NBA Player Association clearly, from that statement, hates women.
Well, yes, actually, because they don't want hate, but they're letting these men do something quite hateful to women. I've got a very simple, logical solution to this. Okay, any woman needs to be castrated to be able to play in the WNBA, and then that way...
Still not enough, Hilary.
Then that would certainly, I think, dissuade men, and they should all have caesarean sections just in case they have a baby.
That's still not enough. You can have a male, I know you were semi-joking tongue-in-cheek, but you can have a male who's gone through a man who's gone through male puberty, increased bone mass, increased ATP in your muscles, lung capacity, and so on.
And do you think you'd want to be castrated?
And even, well...
If they'll be castrated, so everybody...
But they're trans, they probably would be castrated anyway. I mean, something they're probably looking to do anyway. But my point being, the fact that these trans women say, well, my testosterone is as low as a woman's, and I've had the operation, I'm now transitioned, that doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Their musculature is different, their height is different, their strength is different, absolutely everything is different. And we saw this actually, I'm a golfer, and we saw this on the LPGA tour where male golfers were playing in the LPGA, so I think it's absolutely no instance where it's fair to women. And you've seen the injuries like we saw in the Olympics with the nose that was broken. So I think that's very important, the injuries that might be as a ramification of this.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane, this idea of these transgender men, you know, playing women's basketball. I mean, this is the craziest thing I think I've ever heard, actually. And the vast majority of Americans are opposed to this kind of madness. It's absolutely astonishing that the Women's National Basketball Association or the union are actually supporting this. Who in their right mind supports this kind of lunacy?
So these two guys, they're not trans, they are male players who used to play in the NBA.
Yeah, they're just making a political point and a statement here. And the reality is that, you know, this far left woke ideology, this transgender ideology, is a real threat to women, isn't it? Right? And the idea of having transgender men playing women's basketball is a threat to the women who play basketball. It's also an affront to common moral decency, frankly. And there is no such thing as a man who becomes a woman. There are only men and there are women. There's no such thing as, you know, men who think they can turn into women. I mean, it's just, biologically, this cannot happen. You know, I just find it astonishing that you still have, you know, politicians here in America, certainly on the left, socialists, communists and so on, who support this
Gavin Newsom,
this complete, you know, gender madness. Gavin Newsom, for example, who thinks he can become the next president of the United States, believes in these far-left lunatic ideas that are a real fundamental threat, not only to women, but also to the United States as a whole.
Yes. Let's get the thoughts of the guys in London, Benedict and Lewis. Lewis, I assume you understand the point these two former NBA players are making, and that you agree biological men shouldn't be anywhere near women's sports?
So I would say I feel like they could have made their point without mocking people, because they're quite clearly saying that they're not actually trans. They're exploiting the loopholes. They're not going to go through gender reassignment surgery, take any hormones, or change their names. So I feel like this discussion has been going on for a long time, and you know, as someone that is bisexual and part of that LGBT community, I would say I don't feel like this had to be so loaded. You know, if a governing body of a sport says actually we do feel like there is an advantage to people that have gone through male puberty, so we can't have you in. Like, I get that. Like, I understand. I do. I just don't know why it always has to descend into this horrible conversation when we're talking about, I mean, in the UK, there are less than 600,000 trans people. Of those, whoever wants to go into an elite sport, it's going to be minuscule. So I don't see why this is always national news. Say again?
Well, because they're in this instance, Lewis, you're saying that these guys are mocking trans people. Trans women, biological men who go to play in women's sports, they are mocking women. Right. They are cheats. It's the equivalent of me going down to my child's school and playing in a football match and beating them all and celebrating it as if it's something to be proud of. They are mocking the integrity of women's sport. So I think it's a brave,
what I would say is most sporting bodies now have put an end to this. Most sporting bodies now have put an end to this. They kind of flirted with the idea,
not the women's
saw
NBA.
If it worked in their sport. I mean, the women's NBA clearly has not been clear enough. But I think throughout most of the sport we're seeing now, people say, actually, we have to draw a line here because of all the things that you've already outlined. And so that's the way this has gone.
Do you think biological men should be able to play in the women's NBA?
No, because that clearly is somewhere where you would benefit from having gone through male puberty. Don't have a problem with them in, like, you know, I don't know, what, snooker or darts or something like that. It's not going to play a role, right?
There's still, I get your point, but there's still an advantage in those sports as well. Benedict, what's your take on this?
I mean, my take has been pretty consistent from the start, and I'm still amazed that we're having this conversation years and years afterwards. It's very clear. It's interesting, isn't it? Because we were talking about something else that was on a spectrum earlier. There are, there's a spectrum to this as well in terms of people who are trans, what it is that they want out of this, what their motivations are. And we're not talking about the sort of the very, very small percentage of the population who genuinely, I think, have, gender dysphoria, believe that they were born in the wrong body, and ultimately simply want to live quite a dignified and frankly quite private life. And those people who use this as an opportunity for self-aggrandizement, some people of course use this as a sexual fetish, and they enjoy the fact that they are able to force this onto other people. And a lot of this, it must be said, is very male behavior. It's the desire of certain men to force themselves into women's spaces, into women's sports, and the fact that the women can do, up until recently at least, lots of those women can do nothing about it. And it's the way in which actually they argue this case as well. It's the aggressive nature that actually points out to everybody who's watching, no, they are still biological men, and spiritually they're still men as well because they behave like men. It's high time that this was pushed back against, because we are, and when we're talking about elite sports here, there's no question about a physical advantage or not. It's very clear that a 6'7" male or something like that, even if he isn't tanked up on, at the very top, he's still going to have a significant height, size, reach, speed advantage over even the most talented female player. We see this in football as well. When you were talking about, I think it was Megan Rapinoe, the American footballer. When the USA women's team, they decided that they were going to have a warm-up game ahead of one World Cup, and they had an exhibition match against some under-15 boys, and they got battered because the boys were better than them. Because even at 15, they were faster, they were stronger. That's just the way this goes. If you decide to just allow even in sports, actually, like snooker or darts or anything else, you give somebody with a physical advantage because of the chromosomes that they were born with into that sport, it's unfair by definition. The whole point about sport is it's meant to be a fair starting point. Quite clearly here, that's not what this is.
Yeah. Lewis, any final thoughts before we move on?
Well, have any genuine trans people tried to get into the women's NBA, or is it just these two that are making a point? That would be my first question. I would also say the majority of trans people, as Benedict said, just want to live a quiet life. They're not actually focused on this. This is not the biggest issue in their world. And then this is what we talk about on the media, as though every trans person is trying to force their way into women's space, which I don't think is genuinely what's happening. Most people just try to live a life and not be bothered by people.
So what do we do then about the issue of biological men in women's sports? Do we just not talk about it because there's so few trans people
exactly
in the
what has
world,
been happening in sports over the last few years, which is that people are saying we can't do that, and maybe we create mixed gender leagues for the rest of us that aren't bothered by it. I don't know. Like that will have to evolve as it goes. But you know, a lot of the sports now are saying we're not doing this. So there you go. You won the argument on that one. Great.
Okay, Hilary, Niall, any final thoughts?
Yes, go ahead.
Hilary,
I'm waiting for an injury. There's going to be some kind of major injury, and then let's hope there's a massive lawsuit that the WNBA has to pay out for. And then also, I always think, what about those women that are knocked out of the opportunities they've spent their entire life striving for? So if these men actually play on one of these teams, there are women that strove their entire life to have those positions, and now they're knocked out. You see it in swimming all the time, where just a few seconds makes a difference, and there are girls that spent their life training, and they don't have that opportunity.
Yeah, I'll just say as well, this isn't about trans people. I always say that. Let's make that clarification. It's not about trans people. It's about trans women, biological men, who are trying to play in women's sports. That's it. Nobody's got a problem with trans people. I couldn't care less. In fact, I'll tell you something. When I was about 15, I had a trans friend who was probably one of the first outwardly trans people in my town on the south coast in its entire history. He was a bloke. He started transitioning. He was still my mate. We used to go to the pub together and stuff. He was an OG trans person. Nobody cares about trans people. Live your life. Nobody cares. We care when you start going into women's spaces and you start trying to go into women's sports. That's when people raise their voice. Otherwise, no.
Well, in my view, I mean, the law should only recognise men and women, biological males and biological females, and we should have a society that is based upon that as a starting point, really. That's been the case for thousands of years. There's no reason why Western civilization should take a different course because the woke far left demand recognition for transgender ideology. actually. I believe firmly there are only men and women, and the law should be based upon that. And I think that's a common sense approach that should be, that should be the rule of law in all civilized societies.
Okay, Alex on your say has said, doesn't have to be so loaded in response to Lewis, quote unquote. How else can the message be put across without showing the ridiculousness and absurdity of women's sport professional bodies being so disrespectful and unlawful to women? I stand with these men for standing up for women, as I do as a man. Thank you for that, Alex. Appreciate it. Right, let's move on. I've had about enough of that. Iran, on more serious matters, has issued tough new demands for reopening the Strait of Hormuz as a deal to open the crucial waterway remained out of reach last night. Iran's Supreme National Security Council said the Strait of Hormuz will not be opened until the United States, quote, corrects its behaviour. A state broadcaster in Iran published a statement which stipulated the US must never threaten Iran again and must action a permanent end to the war with Iran, as well as ceasing attacks on its armed allies in the region. And additionally, it states the US must lift the naval blockade of Iranian ports and withdraw its military from the region. In a further demand, by the way, I think this is all absolute baloney, the US isn't going to listen to this. In a further demand that will likely aggravate President Trump, the US also must completely compensate Iran for war damage, as well as lifting sanctions and releasing frozen assets. So, with so many of these demands being likely non-starters with the Trump administration, is there any end in sight for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz? Let's speak to the Foreign Desk Editor-in-Chief, Lisa Daftari. Lisa, good to see you again. Hope you're well. Actually, that introduction there said that all of these will be non-starters, but there was whispers in recent months about the United States giving Iran war reparations of some $300 billion. So I don't think it's completely out of the question, but what's your thoughts?
It should be completely out of the question. The two things that the United States should manage going forward so that we don't find ourselves in a JCPOA mistake again is, number one, not to reward any kind of potential behavioral changes up front until we see actual proof of those changes. That's what we saw in the JCPOA, sanctions removal and cash up front. And number two, the assumption that they will eventually be a nuclear power, but that we are only trying to manage or slow down their timeline to the bomb. Neither one of those is a starting point for the Trump administration. They know it. Perhaps this time around, this is a futile attempt at diplomacy, only to pump the brakes on the trajectory of the war that in Donald Trump's view was escalating too quickly. Again, they know we're up against midterms, that we have the domestic pressure here, that the war is not popular. And as you see, the regime making demands of the White House that it has no business making. Number one, the Strait of Hormuz, it should not be gifted to them. We started out this war with our own strategic priority being nuclear weapons. We're not even talking about the nuclear weapons yet. Why would they get a gift up front and then have us pay the reparations? So those who are involved in negotiations know once you settle, you get less than you settled for. I do think we will be going back to war sometime in the near future. I do think that Donald Trump used this tactic to test the regime and to, again, pump the brakes, make sure that we're not escalating too quickly for the taste of the neighboring Arab states, for the opposition here in the United States, and of course the midterms coming up. So he has opposition within his own party as well. This will potentially slow down the course of the war, but from what we can see based on the Iran regime's response, they're not partners in peace. That's for sure.
Are you getting impatient with President Trump, Lisa?
Sometimes I do, but then I remember that no significant war, especially one of this caliber, was done in 7 months or 8 months as we're expecting of him, particularly, again, with this much pressure on the president within his own cabinet, within his own party, within the opposition party, within the mainstream media, and we didn't even leave the country yet. We're talking about Europe, we're talking about the Arab states, many of them, but the bottom line is this. All of those who I mentioned, if they knew about a potentiality to have a world without the #1 state sponsor of terror, where they didn't have to pay anything, where there wouldn't be any consequences for those people, they would sign up for that world, where there would be no Iran regime to put money into proxies, to be the #1 state executioner, to export its brand of Shiite ideology around the world. I think that most people can agree that the world would be a better place without them. Now, is it an easy course to get to the final stages of this war? No, it's going to be extremely complex. But we do have the Israelis on our side. They're incredible with intelligence. We don't need to be blowing up every bridge and tunnel and railroad track in Iran. What we do need to do is be strategic with our regional allies and with Israel and with the intel that we have to get to the end of this war much more quickly.
OK, Lisa, thank you so much. You're great. Appreciate you as always. Thank you so much. Lisa Daftari, Editor-in-Chief at The Foreign Desk. Thanks, Lisa. Quick thoughts from my panel here in Washington. I was about to call you Margaret Thatcher then. Sorry, Niall Gardner. That would be good, wouldn't it? That would be great. Maybe she could sort out the channel. Niall Gardner and Hilary Fordwich. Alf has said on Your Say the US should compensate Iran as soon as Iran compensates all the countries they've directly attacked or sponsored terrorism against. Niall, sound good?
Yeah, well, firstly, Lisa Daftari is always absolutely brilliant on,
Isn't she great?
On the whole Iran issue, and she's absolutely right. The reality is, we need to win here against the Iranian dictatorship, and President Trump was 100% right to go to war against Iran. This is a monstrously barbaric, evil, savage, terrorist regime that has taken a large number of American lives and also British lives as well. Let's not forget all of those British soldiers who were killed in Iraq as a result of Iran's support for Islamist militias killing British soldiers there. So, Britain has a direct stake in this as well. And in my view, the United States has to see this through. It has to prevail. Iran cannot be allowed to blackmail the whole world with its demands, ridiculous demands over the Strait of Hormuz. Iran cannot be allowed in any way to continue with its nuclear ambitions. And the United States, as the world superpower, needs to see this mission through for the sake of the United States, for the sake of the American people, but also for the sake of the free world as well. And it's very unfortunate that the reality is that most of the rest of the world, especially all the European powers, have done nothing at all. They've not lifted a finger really against the Iranian dictatorship. So the United States has had to lead on its own, together of course with Israel and also with our Gulf allies. But if you look at every single European power, including the United Kingdom, they've done absolutely nothing at all. This is a war that has a direct impact, of course, upon the future of Europe, European security. But if you look at the likes of Burnham, Macron, Merz and so on, they're just pathetic appeasers, frankly.
Yeah, I think one of the things, I agree with everything that Niall just said. And in addition, I think a couple of things. One, we're seeing a new world order. Why? Because the Iranians were stupid enough to bomb and attack their Gulf allies. So we're seeing many of the Gulf allies, their former allies, align with us, which I think is wonderful and more in accord with the Abraham Accords. And then secondly, you're seeing a lot of those Gulf nations building pipelines now to circumvent the Strait of Hormuz. That is going to be very important long term, because we're actually seeing a global undermining of the Iranians and the power they had in control of the Gulf of Hormuz. So I think that's the second point that's very important. And thirdly, really important, is what Scott Bessent has touted and what they've been doing to great effect, and that is the economic fury. The cryptocurrencies of the Iranian leadership and also their real estate assets, which they've published some of these major addresses. And I think the economic fury needs to continue without abate against those Iranian leaders, because that's what they care about. They're religious fanatics and they care about themselves. That has to be, we have to put a lot of pressure on them, and that has to be continued.
I agree, but we heard Bessent, I was in the press briefing room months ago, maybe in February, March, the war started February 28th, talking about economic fury.
Yes.
And they're losing $500 million a day.
Right.
And soon they'll be so skint and stifled.
And they haven't capitulated.
And they haven't. So I hear all this stuff. I hear President Trump say, well, we're close to a deal, the Strait of Hormuz is open, and the next day the IRGC go on Twitter or X and say, no, it's not. I hear all this stuff and I just think, what are you doing? Just turn the screw and finish the job.
Absolutely.
So what's going on?
Both militarily and economically, we just have to get it done.
I'm not even American, and it annoys me.
Well, it's not even. This is not an. This is I think a misnomer. It's not an American issue. This is a global issue. In fact, due to drill baby drill, the amount of oil that we have here in the United States, this is far more important to all of Europe. And yet Europe obviously has has vacillated on this and has done absolutely nothing.
All right, let's get the thoughts of Lewis and Benedict in London. Thank you, chaps, for your patience. Benedict, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on this? I mean, how would you proceed if you were... lucky enough to be President of the United States, would you do what I want to do and turn the screw and finish the job?
The only way that you sort this problem, because this war was inevitable, and it was inevitable because Iran wants nuclear weapons, the only way that you're going to deal with this and finish it is with a ground invasion. Donald Trump is not prepared to do that. He doesn't actually have the stones to do this because he fears, basically, the political backlash, both within his party and amongst the voting base. There is a schism, frankly, between Marco Rubio and his supporters on the one hand and J.D. Vance on the other. Trump, I think, thought that he could go into this nice, quick, get it all over with a bombing campaign. That was never going to happen. There was never going to be a popular uprising in Iran because Iran's security status at home, its security apparatus, is set up to suppress internal dissent. There is no opposition, there is no organization. So the idea that they were going to spontaneously overthrow their government is a fantasy. There has to be a ground invasion. Trump doesn't want that. And actually what you're starting to see now is a lot of countries in the region. And it's interesting, your panelists there talking about the solidarity of other Gulf states and other countries in the region. They are not, in fact, particularly comfortable about all of this. This week, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan and Turkey have signed a mutual defence pact, and this comes hot on the heels of the announcement that Saudi Arabia will be allowed to start enriching uranium. This is happening because those three countries do not trust that the United States will actually get the job done. They see the slight schizophrenia within the White House right now, not knowing what direction to go, not knowing whether or not they can see the job through, and they think, guys, we may have to do this ourselves. We may have to prepare for a world where the United States is not top dog. Within Iran itself, it does not believe that there will be a peace deal, but it also doesn't believe that the United States has the stones to go through with this. So right now, actually, there's a lot of uncertainty, because even though they went in full-blooded right at the start thinking this can be done, actually, I think the Americans have underestimated the degree to which it has to be done. What I would say is that the Israelis have never underestimated what will be required, and should the Americans decide we're not going to follow through and maybe we are going to step back, look to see a much more aggressive, independent-minded Israel. And I don't think a lot of people in the United States will be very happy with an Israel that is effectively let off the leash.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Well, they have underestimated Iran. I agree with that. But now I think the administration is just down a cul-de-sac, not knowing what to do. And the only option is find an off-ramp and essentially bottle it with some sort of excuse that makes you look half decent. Or, as you said, finish the job. And that includes a ground invasion, which, I don't know. Niall, do you think Trump would do a ground invasion?
I don't think so.
They've already lost 14 service members, I think, is it 17?
I don't think that's really being considered at all.
Well, that's the only option.
By the United States. But I think that, full-scale resumption of a major bombing campaign, that's definitely a realistic possibility. I would say as well that the overall military campaign was extremely successful and eliminated about 2/3 of the leadership of the Iranian regime. And so the United States is quite capable of repeating that and removing the current.
But again, sorry to interject, we heard that as well, Lewis, with President Trump. I've been at the White House so many times where he said, well, he's joked speaking at some event with the Miami football team, Leo Messi sat next to him and saying Iran's navy's at the bottom of the Persian Gulf, they've got no air force, and then even just a few weeks ago we hear about ships and vessels being attacked still. So I am actually a bit bored and sick of it.
Yeah, you and me both. I mean, this has been 5 months with Trump saying, we're basically declaring victory every 5 minutes or saying it's all going well, and it's clearly not. I think that Trump has lost his base over this. This is not what he promised. It was supposed to be America first. It was supposed to be the cost of gas,
that's not true, actually.
all that kind of stuff.
That's not true.
No. I think he really had. Well, listen, this is my opinion. I think he's going to be punished in the midterm, so we'll see. We'll chat again in November, and we'll see if what I've said has come to pass. We're all getting punished for it because the costs around the globe are increasing as well. I do actually. Here's the thing: if Trump genuinely believed, what's the point in making America great again if in 5 or 10 years Iran are going to throw a nuke at us? I do understand, but he's going to have to take this now that we don't really trust what he's saying. We don't really think he's got a credible plan. A lot of people, as Benedict is saying, probably doesn't have the cojones to finish the job by putting people on the ground. It just is what it is. But I think it's left his legacy in tatters. And that's why you're seeing people like Tucker Carlson and stuff saying, look, we need to create a new movement or something because Trump is not it.
if I could just say one last thing also.
Yeah, if I
you
could...
pointed out that actually, you know, the US military is able to go in and they can assassinate people and they can keep on taking these people out. That's great. But the joy of the Iranian regime is it keeps creating more of these people. It keeps promoting, the entire state apparatus is set up to produce and promote more of these people. So it's never going to run out of people to actually lead the regime, less experienced maybe, but they'll still be there. And what all of those people will be thinking is, we just have to wait. We just have to wait 2 years, 2 and a bit years, because who knows who will be in the White House in 2 and a bit years. It could be the most rabid left-wing Democrat you've ever come across. It could be somebody who's prepared to give them a nuclear deal like the last guy was prepared to do. So as far as the Iranians are concerned, they're sat there and they're going, yes, okay, fine. Everybody hates us. We're a dictatorship. We're a military theocracy. But you know what? We've stumbled upon one of the weaknesses of American democracy, and that is that actually you don't necessarily know what the long-term strategy is going to be, because you can keep on chopping and changing the guy in the White House every 4 years. The one thing that the Iranians have is consistency. We know full well that without a major incursion into Iran, the same regime will be in power after the next US presidential election.
Yeah. Such a good point. I've made that point before in previous shows about democracy. I think it was Churchill who infamously said democracy is...
not a good form of government. It's better than all the other ones tried.
Pretty much better, the best of a bad bunch. But it's such a good point. It goes back to Andy Burnham earlier. You've got a 10-year plan. Well, what happens if you make all these changes in 4 years, you get kicked out, then it gets torn up again? You can't really get much done. Niall, last word to you on this?
Yeah, you know, I think that perhaps the single biggest result of the military campaign has been to set back Iran's nuclear program by several years. And this is the reality. And I think that President Trump deserves great credit. Of course, the Iranian regime is incredibly difficult to get rid of. That's the reality, especially when the rest of the free world does nothing at all. And so the United States has to do this on its own, together with Israel and the Gulf states. And there are, of course, no easy options for the United States. But I do think that President Trump is 100% right to launch the military action against Iran, to set back Iran's nuclear program. And yes, we can cripple the Iranian regime economically. Already, in fact, that's taking place. And there will be a point when this regime cannot survive financially. And the United States does have the power to blockade Iran, to bring this regime to its knees financially. And so this I think will be part of the long-term strategy. I agree with Benedict that if the Democrats come back in power, they're going to want to sign some appeasement, groveling deal with the Iranian regime. And I think it's a dark day for the United States if the socialists take power.
I don't think they'll win. I don't know. Who have they got in a couple of years?
That's a great point. But it's an incredibly dangerous future for the United States if the far left take control, and they will do their deals, of course, with the mad mullahs in Tehran, which will endanger the United States and the rest of the free world.
Yeah, chuck more millions of dollars out of the back of planes like Obama did.
Yeah, indeed. All right, gbnews.com/your say. Let me know your thoughts. Colin has said, I think Trump believes that if the USA denigrates the Iranian defence, military and infrastructure, the Iranian people will overthrow the regime. I'm not convinced that's credible. Trump has actually said he doesn't care about regime change. He said it himself. He denies ever encouraging, really, the Iranians to overthrow their government. Anyway, still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight.
On this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 49. The nomination is confirmed.
President Trump's former personal lawyer, Todd Blanche, has been confirmed as the new US Attorney General after a razor-thin Senate vote. What does it mean for the future of the Epstein files and Trump's anti-weaponization fund? All that and more, front pages after the break. See you in a sec.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's another sunny and fairly hot day to come in the south. Further north, though, a different story. We've got a band of rain slowly edging southwards with some brighter skies following from the north. So a fairly wet morning for parts of Northern Ireland, certainly central and southern Scotland. The rain just creeping its way southwards into northern England as well through this morning. It will turn more showery into the afternoon, and whilst there'll be a few showers in northern Scotland too, many other parts of Scotland will have a brighter day to come compared to yesterday. Now, across southern parts of the UK, particularly Wales, central and southern and southeastern parts of England, it will be a sunny and fairly hot day to come, temperatures into the low 30s for some of us. But I think in the north it will be a fresher feeling day compared to yesterday, and certainly across the Northern Isles, Shetland and Orkney will see quite breezy conditions once again, with a few showers lingering on into this evening. Otherwise, a mixture of cloud and sunny spells across the rest of Scotland and Northern Ireland this evening, and the rain tending to become a bit more showery and lighter across northern England too. Otherwise, a fine end to the weekend across Wales and the rest of England, with a good deal of late evening sunshine. And it's set to be a fairly warm night in the south, temperatures only slowly falling away after today's high temperatures, so remaining at between around 16 and 18 degrees Celsius perhaps in the towns and the cities. A fresher feeling night though further north, one or two showers still coming into the very far northeast of Scotland, but temperatures in the countryside in more northern areas probably falling down into the mid to high single figures. Now, there could be one or two mist and fog patches in the southwest of England first thing on Monday morning, but those will quickly clear, and then for most it's set to be a dry and fine day on Monday, a mixture of cloud but also some prolonged periods of sunshine. Still quite cool and breezy in the northeast of Scotland, and still one or two showers possible here. Otherwise though, temperatures in the high teens, low 20s in more northern parts of the UK, and not as hot as today in the south, but still very warm indeed.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Donald Trump's personal former lawyer, Todd Blanche, has been confirmed as the new US Attorney General after a thin Senate vote victory. The Republican-led chamber approved him by 50 votes to 49, despite opposition from every Democrat going and 3 Republicans over concerns about the independence of the Justice Department. Blanche has already been serving in the role on an acting basis since April and says he's deeply honoured to take over permanently. His confirmation follows criticism over his handling of the Epstein files and a controversial $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund for January 6ths, which he later scrapped. Let's speak to political reporter for the Daily Mail, Victoria Churchill. Victoria, great to see you. What does this mean then for well, President Trump, but more importantly, I suppose, the Epstein files and the weaponization fund?
Well, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me back on, Ben. Always great to see you. Great to see you back in D.C. in the studio after your wild World Cup romp around. But, you know, it's, you know, there's lots to look at here. Of course, the Epstein files, you know, this was really, I think, part of the downfall of former Attorney General Pam Bondi. You know, she had that explosive hearing a few months ago. You know, the hearing that was really heard around the world, like it was being anime memed in Japan. So that went far and wide. You know, just how she was grilled. She was asked to look these Epstein survivors in the face, and she didn't do that. And so, you know, she took the blame. She took the fall. I think, you know, in my view, that was kind of the beginning of the end for her tenure at the top of the Justice Department. But also what we're seeing here is that we had the we had Blanche. He was her number 2. He helped, approve a lot of this paperwork, these millions of documents that were going out. So there's a lot that he had a hand in. I think that people were not fans of what she was doing. And, I think the other thing that we have to look at is that this Department of Justice, the Epstein stuff has obviously taken up a lot of the media's attention, but there's also a lot of things that they're doing. For example, the Religious Freedom Commission, anti-discrimination for religious groups, particularly Jewish groups. That's, I think, some of the more positive things that they're doing that aren't really getting as much media coverage. So I think a lot of that will still go on and continue. Of course, this anti-weaponization fund, this was a big hangout for a lot of Republicans. And I think that's also interesting to note is that I think a lot of people are disappointed with the way that the Department of Justice as a whole has handled this. Of course, Blanche, I think there's not too much that he can distance himself from because he's been that number 2. And the other thing that we have to look at is, this vote, it was a lot tighter even than the Bondi confirmation vote. Bondi actually did get one Democrat on board, John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. He was the only Democrat that supported her nomination. One Republican that didn't support it was Susan Collins. She's, of course, got that really tough re-election race up in Maine. Those Epstein survivor voices and their allies and people that really want to see, that all be wrapped up and really the truth to come out on that. They really felt like she was kind of part of the reason why that wasn't done with the previous DOJ. So that's one of the reasons she opposed her. And then, of course, Mitch McConnell still dealing with the health issues, still dealing with recovery. So he also didn't vote. So that was another Republican vote loss. And then, of course, Lisa Murkowski in Alaska as well.
Okay, interesting. Well, best of luck to Todd Blanche. Never met him, never spoken to him, but President Trump's new Attorney General. Victoria, thank you so much. Catch up soon. Appreciate it. Any words quickly on Todd Blanche? Do you care?
Well, I don't think this is a sort of unexpected major news. After all, Todd Blanche has been acting in this role for several months since Pam Bondi left, and of course the Democrats are going to oppose every single nomination the president puts forward. I mean, they have, I think, objected to practically everybody. The only exception has been, I think, with Marco Rubio as nominee for Secretary of State. So this is par for the course here in Washington. The Democrats are going to oppose anyone who President Trump puts forward, and they're always going to say, oh, this is politicized.
Trump derangement syndrome. Hillary?
Yes, Trump derangement syndrome. He could be for puppies and they would be opposed to that. But I would say with regard to Todd Blanche, of course, they're saying that Trump is weaponizing the law, but Todd Blanche was extremely effective on President Trump's behalf. And of course, we know all the ludicrous accusations made against President Trump. So I think what he's put in position is somebody that's effective, and it's going to now be effective for the American public and for the American people. I think that's what's really important about this appointment. He has people in place, Scott Bessent at Treasury, extremely effective, and Marco Rubio, extremely effective. I think he's very good at picking good people. Only true, genuinely wonderful leaders can surround themselves with powerful, strong, good people, and that's what he's doing.
I think that's the difference between Trump's first term and this term, is that the first term, I think he got bounced around. He had a lot of sort of globalists in his midst. John Bolton, Fauci was there leading him along as well.
They didn't have the time to vet them. Somebody in the first administration said to me, we never actually really thought that we would be elected. This time they vetted so many people and they had plenty of time to plan.
This White House is a very loyal White House to President Trump, whereas before it was just a viper's nest of snakes and
You're totally correct.
reptiles. Right, let's move on. A Labour-run council has sparked anger after spending almost £1 million of your money on new public toilets, including 3 squat-style loos aimed at international visitors. I don't need to explain it any more than that. There's a picture on your screen. Squat-style loos. Very Western, not. The toilets are located opposite Queen's College at the University of Cambridge, and anyone who wants to use them will have to fork out £1 for the privilege. Squat toilets are commonplace in China and India, as well as on the continent, and are considered more hygienic by some cultures, apparently. Let's speak to the guys in London, Benedict, Lewis, and also DC, Hillary and Niall. Lewis, what is this about? I thought if you've got international visits, if I go to a foreign country and I'm going travelling, went to Japan last year, great country, I want to experience their food. I want to experience their culture and their way of doing things. Why is Britain now pandering to toilet preferences for foreigners? What's going on?
Well, look, I haven't seen the full article because it's in tomorrow's paper, so I haven't actually read their rationale. What I would say is I didn't think you could charge people to go to the toilet in this country anymore. £1 is actually the more outrageous bit for me. Why are you charging me to go to the toilet? I will say, as a dad of 3 kids, 2 very little ones, Daddy, I need to go to the toilet. I'm happy to see more public toilets in general because there are none certainly in London, and you're always trying to go into a cafe when your kids need to go. So that's a positive thing. Don't know why we're being charged £1 for it. On the squatting thing, genuinely don't know anything about it.
Okay, Benedict, any thoughts on squatting toilets?
I suspect that this is one of those things where, you know, a hole in the ground probably costs significantly less than a lavatory to install and to maintain. And so I think that this is one of those, some clever boffin will have come up with a thought, this is 2 birds with 1 stone. We can pretend to be sort of culturally very open and welcoming to the rest of the world by saying, look at what we've done. We've brought in this system that other people around the world use, and why don't you give it a go as well? Maybe it'll be novel. But at the same time, also, you won't have to spend very much money, A, on installing it, B, maintaining it, C, very simply, you won't have to spend very much money on cleaning it either. I suspect that's at least in part what's informed this decision.
Yeah, I know we're sort of joking around here and, you know, slightly tongue-in-cheek, but for me this is actually quite sinister. I can't think of any other country who behaves in this way, Hillary, where we just pander to... It feels like, I'm not saying it is, it feels like we just prioritise British culture, British people, British way of life and the way we do things below everybody else. It's any other group, any other nation, foreigners. I don't understand it.
Well, one of the things you said I thought that was very apropos in your opening remarks was with regard to your travels to Japan. When you travel, you want to experience different cultures. That's what makes different cultures unique. And I, you know, say there's the old expression, when in Rome, well, when in Britain, do things the British way. Yes, it's undermining fundamental culture and pandering, you're right, to other cultures and basically putting the British public last, let alone with their pounds that are taxed.
Niall, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's sad to see this sort of thing, really, isn't it? And I think it's utterly ridiculous. It's a waste of money, and it's pandering, of course, to the DEI woke left.
Yes.
I think it's very ideological, actually. Even though we're discussing toilets in Cambridge, I think that left-wing ideology is really at the root of all this, rather than sort of potential cost saving. And British toilets should be British, really. Why should they be in the style of China or India or any other country, or even some European countries have this mode of toilets as well? And so it just strikes me as yet another surrender to woke DEI ideology, basically.
Yeah, it seems like a trivial story. Go on, Lewis.
Is it all woke, though? Is there not an argument for saying, oh, different countries around the world have this, let's try it here, see if it takes off, people will vote with their feet, if they don't want to pay £1 to squat, then they won't do it and we won't build any more. I mean, what I will say is, taking my kids to some of the public toilets, they're disgusting. I'd probably better off they were squatting than sitting on those filthy toilet seats. So, if I saw one and I was out with my kids, I'd be like, actually, maybe that's a bit more hygienic.
Yeah, well,
also, you've got to have strong knees. You've got to be strong. What about the elderly? What about the handicapped? Isn't this prejudiced and biased against them?
No, it's a very good point. Again, my point is that, if I go to a foreign country, I want to experience that country. They don't accommodate our norms in their culture, so why are we accommodating everyone but our own? And great point about the hygiene of public toilets, Lewis. I know this is a bit of a grim conversation at 1 in the morning, but toilets on trains. I was in the UK for 2 weeks, just last couple of days. The toilets on trains are revolting, absolutely disgusting. The leader of Cambridge City Council, Katie Thornborough, said in response to this story about toilets, as they are located at one of the key entry points to the city for coaches bringing international tourists to spend time in the city, we wanted to provide suitable facilities to meet the demand, with a range of toilets to choose from, including a number of the squat toilets that many international visitors prefer. Councillor, should we find out which party she represents? Councillor...
Oh, I wonder which.
Katie Thornborough.
Let's guess.
Cambridge Council. Any guesses?
Guess. Green, Liberal.
Lewis, Benedict, any guesses who she's a member of?
Yeah, I'll go Liberal Democrat.
Yeah,
Liberal
go
on there.
I'm just trying to find out. Where is she?
Lib Dem, Green.
It's one or the other.
I think she's a Lib Dem.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go.
Oh no, she's Labour. She's Labour.
Oh, Labour. Oh, Labour.
She's Labour Party. Right, there we go. That answers your question. Coming up on the Late Show Live after the break, including this. Take a look.
And I'm especially pleased to say that, likewise, religion is back in our country, bigger and stronger than it has been in many, many years.
Interesting story. This 3 mothers in Texas are suing to block a law requiring the 10 Commandments to be displayed in every public classroom. Is this simply paying tribute to America's Christian tradition, or should God always be kept out of the classroom? Let's get a very quick look at your weather. Back in a sec.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's another sunny and fairly hot day to come in the south. Further north, though, a different story. We've got a band of rain slowly edging southwards with some brighter skies following from the north. So a fairly wet morning for parts of Northern Ireland, certainly central and southern Scotland. The rain just creeping its way southwards into northern England as well through this morning. It will turn more showery into the afternoon, and whilst there'll be a few showers in northern Scotland too, many other parts of Scotland will have a brighter day to come compared to yesterday. Now, across southern parts of the UK, particularly Wales, central and southern and southeastern parts of England, it will be a sunny and fairly hot day to come, temperatures into the low 30s for some of us. But I think in the north it will be a fresher feeling day compared to yesterday, and certainly across the Northern Isles, Shetland and Orkney will see quite breezy conditions once again, with a few showers lingering on into this evening. Otherwise, a mixture of cloud and sunny spells across the rest of Scotland and Northern Ireland this evening, and the rain tending to become a bit more showery and lighter across Northern England too. Otherwise, a fine end to the weekend across Wales and the rest of England, with a good deal of late evening sunshine. And it's set to be a fairly warm night in the south, temperatures only slowly falling away after today's high temperatures, so remaining at between around 16 and 18 degrees Celsius perhaps in the towns and the cities. A fresher feeling night though further north, 1 or 2 showers still coming into the very far northeast of Scotland, but temperatures in the countryside in more northern areas probably falling down into the mid to high single figures. Now, there could be 1 or 2 mist and fog patches in the southwest of England first thing on Monday morning, but those will quickly clear, and then for most it's set to be a dry and fine day on Monday, a mixture of cloud but also some prolonged periods of sunshine. Still quite cool and breezy in the northeast of Scotland, and still 1 or 2 showers possible here. Otherwise though, temperatures in the high teens, low 20s in more northern parts of the UK, and not as hot as today in the south, but still very warm indeed.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right.
GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Live from Washington, this is GB News with the story shaping Britain and America coming up tonight.
But I can do something to give people some breathing space now, some help with the cost of living.
The Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, is set to start a national tour this week to directly ask the great British public how government can improve their lives. Is this the hope and the change he promised, or just, maybe as critics suggest, a gimmick? Also,
on that same vein, in that story with ESPN, you talked about wanting to protect young girls who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Just can you expand your viewpoint on that?
I mean, I think I said what I said. I think it's kind of common.
big row in women's sports here in America. Two former male NBA players say they're now going to play in the Women's Basketball League. Royce White is one of them. He says he's declaring for next year's WNBA draft, claiming he now identifies as a woman for the purpose of playing professional basketball. Is this trolling or perhaps, as I think, taking a principled stand in sports gender wars? Also,
and I'm especially pleased to say that, likewise, religion is back in our country, bigger and stronger than it has been in many, many years.
We'll be discussing this next. Great conversation. 3 mothers in Texas are suing to block a law requiring the 10 Commandments to be displayed in every public school classroom. Is this simply paying tribute to America's Christian tradition and heritage, or, as they say, should we be keeping God and all religions out of the classroom? Also tonight,
Cuba's got problems. We'll finish one first. I like to finish a job.
US intelligence agencies have reportedly warned President Trump that removing Cuba's communist leadership could prove far more complicated than Washington's intervention in Venezuela. Also,
here's the real answer to your question, though, what you're saying. Was it good for our Constitution? Was it good for the American people? Was it good for my dad's legacy? No, on all counts.
Hunter Biden says his father's decision to pardon him was damaging to his legacy. So did that fateful decision near the tail end of Joe Biden's premiership damage the reputation of America's 46th president? I'm Ben Leo. This is The Late Show Live. Joining me tonight in Washington is the former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, and the political commentator Hilary Fordwich. And in London, delighted to say we have broadcaster and podcaster Lewis Oakley and the political commentator Benedict Spence. Thank you very much, chaps. We'll join you in just a second. Right, great story this, good talker, good debate. 3 mothers in Texas are suing the state to block a law that requires the 10 Commandments to be displayed in every public school classroom. So the parents argue the law imposes Christian beliefs on children and breaches both religious freedom protections and parents' constitutional rights over their children's upbringing. Supporters, though, say the 10 Commandments are an important part of America's history and heritage, while similar laws are already enforced in the likes of Louisiana, Alabama and Arkansas. The Texas law has survived one federal challenge, but further legal action could now reach the US Supreme Court, where I suspect they'll lose. But is this initiative a celebration of America's Christian tradition, or should God always be kept out of the classroom? Let's speak to political strategist, friend of the show, podcast host, Tiffany Marie Brannan. Tiffany, hello you. Haven't seen you in a while. Are you well? And what do you make of this raging debate?
Well, first of all, Ben, you know how I feel about this, I'm pretty sure. I am very much pro the 10 Commandments in schools. It is a foundational aspect of our nation. I mean, we can go back to George Washington, right? George Washington, when he was not even president, but when he was commander-in-chief of the army and was running around, you know, shooting and killing people, he still commanded that the soldiers would observe the Sabbath and keep it holy. And that 11 a.m. every single Sunday, all the soldiers in that army would stop and pause and attend a church service. Not only that, we look at John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams wrote a wonderful series of letters. It's actually been published into a book. Now, I think in the 1800s, they finally put it together in a book where he said to his son that the laws given at Sinai, and by that he means Mount Sinai, where Moses got the 10 Commandments from God. The laws given at Sinai are not just laws that, you know, are civil and municipal, but are also religious and moral. And his father, John Adams, said that America was created for a moral and religious people, and without that, we would not survive. So when you look at what the 10 Commandments say, don't murder, don't steal, honor your parents, these are not things that should be really radical or considered bad things for kids to have in their face every day, especially considering what's going on in 2026.
Yeah, and as I said, there's similar laws in place already. Louisiana, Alabama, and not as I pronounced it, Arkansas, of course. It's late here, yeah, forgive me. But there are similar laws being applied anyway. So I just wonder why there haven't been similar lawsuits in those states, Alabama, Louisiana.
Well, I think it's because those are probably more the Bible Belt states, and Texas has been really infiltrated by, frankly, non-white, non-Christian, non-normal American population in the last few years. It's one of the largest states of H-1B visas, and it has also been a border state. Obviously, we know what the immigration has done to states like Texas and my state, Arizona, and California as well. And because of this, the demographic is rapidly changing and is pushing away from the traditional sort of Bible Belt, Southern Christian kind of identity, and is really becoming, unfortunately, I think, far more quote unquote diverse and, you know, multicultural. And the woman actually, I was watching interviews with the mothers that are putting this lawsuit forward. And the one said that she was upset because she comes from a multi-faith family that includes Hinduism and random other religions I have never heard of. And then she threw in a Quakerism and Judaism and all this other stuff, along with all of her crazy, weird religions, that she felt she wasn't represented and that she was going to have children that were confused and that they should think that everything is good and there's all these different gods. And that fundamentally goes against what this country was founded on and the way that our law and justice system is created. So I think a lot of this has to do with immigration, and especially where you see Texas is going as a society and culturally, this is kind of a warning flag.
Yeah, well, Texas, of course, I mean, I went down there. They're building sort of mega mosques, Muslim cities and so on. Greg Abbott, the governor down there, has been sort of very diligent on trying to fight the fact that he doesn't want these sort of Islamic enclaves popping up all over Texas. So, yeah, they could have something to do with it. I will say, though, in Texas, there is a law, the 1999 religious, something to do with religion, but signed by Bush, actually, George W. Bush, which protects religious freedoms in Texas. So that is what these families are citing. They're saying having the 10 Commandments in school classrooms directly breaches that piece of legislation. So, I mean, have they got a point legally?
So it's interesting because the way the law is written, it is specifically talking about, like, obviously pushing religion ideology that from a specific religion onto children. Now, the people that have passed this legislation, they've explicitly given interviews to this point in press conferences where they speak to this because no lawsuit has come to it from this angle before. So from a legal perspective, the way they're bringing this suit, it is interesting. It is sort of a last-ditch effort to try to get it abolished or not, enacted. But what they're missing is that the way that the law is written is that I hope they're going to lose because they're looking at it as a basis of foundational American law and a justice system, as well as what the founding fathers were being informed as. So the way that hopefully these 10 commandments are being legally displayed and will continue to be legally displayed is in an effort to basically explain and sort of communicate the 10 commandments that shaped our country and made America what it is. Because whether they like it or not, we were founded on Judeo-Christian principles. We were founded by men who believed in the Bible and who did, say they were Christian. So I think that that's really where this is coming back, is that they're using it more of a historical understanding, a foundational understanding, an educational understanding. And they're not saying, and very explicitly they've said this, we are not telling you that you have to believe in Jesus Christ. We are not telling you that you have to believe in the Bible. We are not telling you have to pray. There's no requirement whatsoever in the state for that. This is very specifically about education and understanding where we came from and why we are where we are today.
Okay, well said. Thank you very much, Tiffany. Appreciate it. By the way, you're always on your travels somewhere across the US. Where are you? It looks like a hotel room. What are you up to?
I just got to New York, actually, like an hour ago. So, ta-da!
Oh, thank you for coming on then. Appreciate it.
Always.
Fresh off a flight, fresh as a daisy. Thanks, Tiffany. See you soon. Take care. Political strategist and podcast host Tiffany Marie Brannan. Let's get the thoughts of my panel. Former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, political commentator Hilary Fordwich, and the chaps in London, Lewis Oakley and Benedict Spence. Hilary, have you got a problem with this?
Well, I think it's a very slippery slope, actually. Yes, our nation was founded on Judean-Christian principles, but the moment that you actually make sure, if you have the law behind you in terms of having God in the classroom, which God? And we do know that by 2060, Muslims will be the majority religion. So will that be their God? Will it be
Allah?
Where,
in the US? Or?
Here in the US. Globally, it will be the majority religion, the dominant religion.
I'm surprised it's not already. Isn't that the case?
In 2060. No, I think it's by 2052, there'll be the same as a number of Christians by 2060, the dominant religion. I grew up also, that we all probably remember the Troubles, Catholics killing Protestants and Protestants killing Catholics. So I always say when people want to talk about God, like, well, which religion are we talking about, which God? I think it's wonderful that people can have their own choice about religion. I don't like to see religion mandated anywhere, but the 10 Commandments are the historic religion in this country, and a lot of Americans feel very strongly about their Christian faith, but I think it's a very personal matter.
Niall?
My view is that America is a Christian nation, and the 10 Commandments, it's perfectly fine if Texas wants to put the 10 Commandments into schools. I think this should be a matter for Texas to decide, and it is, I think, handled on a state-by-state issue, and a number of other states, including Alabama, have already implemented 10 Commandments policies in terms of putting the commandments up in school.
Arkansas, Louisiana.
Yes, yeah. I think it's a good thing, really, and it reflects the Christian heritage of the United States. But
the issue is, these claimants are saying it goes against that 1999 legislation of religious freedom signed by George Bush.
Well,
so that's their point.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think this in any way undermines religious freedom, and the United States stands upon the principles of religious freedom. All this means is you have the 10 Commandments put into schools, and surely this is a good thing, I think, for school children in Texas and across the United States. This doesn't infringe upon anyone's religious freedom at all, and I think there should be respect for America's Christian heritage and its teachings, no matter where someone comes from in the world who arrives in the United States, and I think there should be respect for America's Christian heritage and teaching. So I think this is a good thing for Texas, and it doesn't in any way undermine anyone's religious freedom in America.
Okay, Benedict, do we need more separation of church and state?
I think the difficulty is always going to be that the church, whichever church it is going to take an interest in politics. So, the idea of separating church and state is a very good idea up until a certain point, and you need to remember that the one is going to inform the other. You can't actually entirely divorce the two, entirely because, ultimately the spiritual is going to inform the political. So, when it comes to talking about things like the Ten Commandments, as a fairly basic set of rules, I don't think they're necessarily the worst thing in the world. I don't think it can be the case that you can be turning around to parents, say, in a state like Texas, and say, we're not going to let you teach these things to your children. Now, does it actually infringe upon the rights of other children from other religious backgrounds? I wouldn't say so. In that point, you're just sort of talking about it a bit like in the UK when you have RE lessons, religious education, and you get a bit of a smorgasbord of everything. There's nothing wrong, actually, with learning about a religion that isn't your own. So I don't think having the Ten Commandments in schools is necessarily exclusionary of other people's faiths. It's simply learning to understand what it is that state is founded on, an important part of its history, and not just its history, actually, its current culture today. These states, especially across the South in America, a lot of them do cling to their religious heritage and their religious practices today. They're very keen not to lose them, and I think actually it's rather an important aspect of those states not losing their character, not losing the culture that makes them separate, rather than becoming like any other state in the United States. I think it's a very important thing to maintain.
Yeah. Great point. And again, it goes back to the squatting toilets. Each state in America is like its own little country. It's amazing. They've got character, they've got history, they've got cultural norms and so on, which you wouldn't see in other states. Lewis, here's a pop quiz for you. Do you know what the Ten Commandments are?
Not a clue. My mom goes absolutely mad at me that my sister and I can't recite the Lord's Prayer.
Thou shalt not.
Of course, Hillary knows the one about not coveting thy neighbour's ass or ox. Yeah, just putting it out there. But
Is it, Lewis? You don't know one of them?
Not really. I also don't know the Lord's Prayer. My mom goes mad at me for that. But look, it's not done me any harm. I'm still here. I'm still a functioning adult in a society. Here's the thing. I think I side with the parents, right? I think that when it comes to parents and state, what the parents say goes. And I think that we've seen that, especially in the UK at the moment, that a lot of parents saying, what are you teaching our kids? Actually, we're not comfortable with that. So actually, if in Texas, these parents say, look, we don't want that up on the walls. Teach them about investing. Teach them how to get on in the world. Don't worry about the Ten Commandments. If I want them to know what those are, then I'll teach them that at home. I don't really have a problem with it.
Lewis, you do know one. Come on, you know one.
I don't know.
Thou shalt not kill.
Come on.
You must have heard that. You must have heard that at some point. Also, thou shalt not steal. That's on there as well.
Okay.
These are things that you learn fairly. Yes. Also, I am the Lord thy God. You will worship no other God but me. That's less important.
See, you guys already know it. There's no need to have it up on the walls.
Thou shalt not kill. They're kind of biggies, I think.
Yeah, honour your parents, don't murder, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't lie, don't covet your neighbours, don't be jealous of your neighbour.
Haven't done any of that stuff, and I didn't even know what they were, so great. We didn't need them.
You've got the entirety of Southern Europe going, yes, honour thy parents, and then no adultery. Oh, well, maybe not. So, you can interpret them, it's okay.
Keep the Sabbath holy.
Killing and stealing are important.
Keep the Sabbath holy, no misuse of God's name, do not use God's name in a disrespectful way. I mean, I'm guilty of that. Noel, any last thoughts?
I do believe that Texas is 100% right to move forward with this, and this does not in any way undermine religious freedom in the United States. In fact, quite the opposite. And I think it's good for American states to honour the founding Christian culture of the founding fathers and the traditions that they have left to future generations. So I think this is a good thing, and it reflects very well upon I think the leadership of Texas right now.
Okay, just a quick comment from Caroline White. Hello, Caroline. Good morning to you. Thank you for staying up so late. You said the Bible is basically a guide on how to live a righteous life, the greatest commandment of which is to love one another. So regardless of which God people say they serve, surely that is the ultimate goal for everyone, and the only way humanity will ever live in peace, which is by loving and forgiving one another. For God is love, 1 John 4:16. Thank you, Caroline. I appreciate that, and wholeheartedly agree. Right, let's move on, shall we? US intelligence agencies have reportedly warned President Trump that removing Cuba's communist leadership could prove far more complicated than Washington's intervention in Venezuela, where, of course, they just hopped in after an hour or two, plucked Maduro into a Black Hawk and then took him back to New York. Officials are said to believe that any successor to Raul Castro would likely come from the regime's hardline factions, making Cuba more comparable to the likes of Iran than to Venezuela, where the US was able to install an existing vice president after Maduro's removal. The CIA has reportedly created a dedicated Cuba task force as Washington increases pressure through an oil blockade, but officials are still struggling to identify a potential replacement leader acceptable to the United States. So, should the president mount an invasion against one of America's most long-standing enemies? Should he do that? Should he go after the commies? Or is the US military already overstretched with its current commitments? Let's speak to senior policy analyst for Latin America at the Heritage Foundation, Andres Martinez-Fernandez. Andres, great to see you again on the Late Show Live. Thank you very much. Warnings for Trump that Cuba ain't going to be no Venezuela. Do you agree?
Well, I think it's tough to say that an experience, particularly a military operation of the scale and importance that we saw in Venezuela and might see in somewhere like Cuba, it's really hard to compare one for one the experience. But I'll say that I'm a little skeptical about the comparisons for the same reason of a kind of longer term Middle Eastern style challenge as we've seen in the past with our engagements there. I think, frankly, the example of Venezuela is far more close to what we would and should expect to a Cuba intervention, in large part because we actually have not only the same hemisphere as Venezuela, but in the case of Venezuela, we were actually directly up against the same forces that we would see the U.S. military up against in Cuba. That's because there were dozens of Cuban security forces guarding Nicolas Maduro when we went in to capture him in January. And that's the same government, which has been the Cuban government, which had been behind the scenes in Venezuela for years, manipulating and running things in a way that benefited themselves. So I think the comparison, if we're making a comparison between Venezuela and Iran as to which one we should expect a Cuba-type operation to reflect, I think the Venezuela comparison would be far more aligned with my expectations. And there are other reasons too. Certainly, as far as military capacity, the Cuban military is nowhere near as capable as the Iranian military. It's not even as far as comparison to the Venezuelan military at that level that it was at when we went in January. So for a number of reasons, I'm pretty skeptical about the kind of attempts by some to make this out like a pending crises and long-term quagmire.
Military intervention, Andres, because I think it was John Ratcliffe, the CIA boss, was in Cuba recently, basically trying to tee up a possible replacement in leadership. Do you think the likes of Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, who of course is of Cuban descent, do you think he'll be listening to the CIA if it came down to should we go in, shall we not? Because he is obviously he knows, of course, what Cuba is like, what communism does to a people. Do you think he'd be quite keen to maybe just ignore the CIA?
I mean, I'm sure he would take into account relevant intelligence and assessments from the U.S. intelligence agencies. But I think Secretary Rubio, as others, are also going to be aware that their assessments do not always prove to align with reality, particularly when it comes to these kinds of engagements. There were a lot of warnings also from U.S. intelligence, apparently, about the kind of operations against Venezuela, potentially. Remember, as far as the withdrawal from Afghanistan as well, the way that U.S. intelligence saw that playing out was very far away from the actual reality. So I think Secretary Rubio, who, as you say, is himself Cuban American, but also knows, I think, more than just about any official in the United States government right now about Cuba and the realities there and of the regime. He will know that there is a role for that assessment from the CIA, but ultimately that's not the final word.
Okay, Andres, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Andres Martinez-Fernandez, Senior Policy Analyst for Latin America at the Heritage Foundation. Thanks very much. Niall, your colleague from the Heritage Foundation.
Yes, yeah, and I have to say a very brilliant colleague as well, and a leading authority on anything to do with Latin America. And clearly, of course, for the Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the ultimate liberation of Cuba is extremely important and a priority issue, as it is for millions of Americans, of course, who have fled from the brutal and barbaric communist regime in Cuba. And I hope that eventually we will see the liberation of the Cuban people from their oppressive regime. And the Trump administration, I think, is one of the first US presidencies in recent times to treat this as a top priority, which is a real breath of fresh air following the outrageous appeasement of the Biden administration towards Cuba. The Obama administration was even worse, actually, in terms of their sort of groveling before the Cuban regime. And so the Trump administration has taken a far more aggressive and assertive approach. This is the right approach to take against the Cuban regime. Of course, Cuba is a close ally of both Russia and China, and also the Iranian dictatorship as well. And so the United States has a vested interest in standing up to the Cuban communist regime, and also in advancing whatever can be done for the freedom of the people of Cuba. And when that day happens, when the Cuban regime collapses, when communism is defeated in Cuba, this will be a great moment of celebration here in the United States, especially in Florida, and those states with large communities of those who have left the Cuban regime. So I hope that day will arrive soon, when we can celebrate the freedom of the Cuban people.
Hillary, I was watching US cable news today, and they were suggesting that the White House, ahead of the midterms in November, will be going on hard on one attack line, which is communism. Do not let communism seep into the United States. Do not let the commies take over. Could you see the president taking Cuba like he did Venezuela?
I think it is an objective, because I do know that members of the administration have already met with Raul Rodriguez down there, who is Fidel Castro's grandson. Now, there is another Oscar Freire, who is Fidel Castro's great nephew. I know, obviously, he is right. He also is sort of in the running. But with regard to Raul Rodriguez, that's sort of like the administration's, best of the worst scenario, if you look at it that way. But as to your question, yes, the administration is going to run on an anti-communist, anti-socialism platform. We've also just seen this socialistic party in the United States declare that they want to defund the police, defund ICE. They want to abolish the Senate. They actually even want to abolish the presidency in the long run. I think it's absolutely ludicrous. It's way, way far left of liberal. And actually, the only really good news about it is, though, Ben, is that basically it's the destruction of the Democratic Party as we know it, because even people like Chuck Schumer aren't endorsing these Democratic Socialists of America, the DSA. So I think you're seeing this bifurcation and the destruction of the Democrats, and that to a certain degree is obviously beneficial for Republicans. But what's scary, last but not least, is that you're seeing liberal elite institutions literally pouring out, educating these very privileged young students who are obviously sort of have their pie in the sky ideas of what socialism really is. What I would point to is, give me the country, the socialistic country that has succeeded, where people want to go there, and then I'll listen to the success of socialism. There isn't such a country.
Somebody should start some sort of charity or fund where they mop up all the students in London and America who call for communism and socialism, sign up to the socialist work and all that nonsense, and just ship them off to an all paid for expenses trip to Cuba or somewhere like that for a couple of years.
One-way ticket, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I should add to the excellent comments by Hillary that, so it's not actually a separate party. It's the Democratic Socialists of America are actually part of the Democratic Party.
Just a wing of it.
They're actually within it. They're seeking to take over.
And they're the guys supporting Mamdani.
Which is good for Republicans, really.
I mean, they are completely and utterly crazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's get the thoughts of Benedict and Lewis. Benedict, there is talk that the United States government wants Raul, what's his name, Hillary? Just remind me.
Raul Rodriguez.
Yes, Raul Castro, who is the nephew.
Raul Rodriguez is the grandson of Fidel Castro, and Oscar Freire is the great nephew.
In May, the US charged Raul Castro with murder over the 1996 downing of 2 planes, but it seems now John Ratcliffe, the CIA
went to visit.
Director, has been in Cuba earlier this year, kind of speaking to them and seeing if he can tee him up for a replacement. I guess it shouldn't come of any surprise. They had Jelani in the Oval Office of former Al-Qaeda fame. So, Benedict, your thoughts on this, on Cuba?
I mean, Cuba is one of those sort of long-standing sores inside of the United States, and in particular, I think it has obviously real personal relevance for Marco Rubio. I also wonder if there is that sort of slight desire to maybe shift attention away from the relative failures in the Middle East, where, you know, aspects of the campaign have gone well, but the overall goal has not been achieved. And of course, you know, the one thing that you have to say about the Venezuela intervention was how sudden it was, and actually relatively how impressive it was. Now, as has been sort of detailed earlier on, these are not similar situations at all. But one does wonder if perhaps the United States might weigh up the pros and cons and go, well, okay, it might be very difficult to do, but might there be something that we can achieve, especially given that Donald Trump is sort of, you know, he's in the final furlongs of his time in office. He's looking for a legacy. He will not want his legacy to be a quagmire in the Middle East. Might he be thinking to himself, listen, I've achieved some pretty good things elsewhere in my time in office, especially on the world stage. Could there be one last roll of the dice? Could I be the president to finally, you know, bring in that change in Cuba, as has been touched upon? Incredibly difficult. But Donald Trump is a showman. He likes to go out, he likes to do things that are big. I'm sure he'd like to go out with a bang.
Likes to invade countries. Yeah, I mean, it could be Rubio on the ticket in 28-29. So maybe it would be left to Rubio to do. Maybe that'll be a gift from Trump to Rubio if he wins the nomination and then becomes president. I'm sure Rubio would love to do the job. Lewis, can I just ask you just briefly? As I said, the White House here, this side of the pond, is talking about communism ahead of the midterms. That's their attack line. They're warning the great American public: do not let communism take over the United States. Why do we see in so many polls and so on, and even just speaking to people on the streets of, say, London, I've done it before, where so many young people are just pro-commie? They say capitalism sucks, communism is the future, we need communism, and everyone would just be happy.
Listen, I was really surprised by what J.D. Vance said in his interview with Joe Rogan. He illustrated it beautifully. If young people feel that they have not got a stake in the system as it is now, and we know they don't, here in America, all over the Western world, they cannot afford to get on the housing ladder, cannot afford to start a family, they can't even afford to leave their mom's basement. Like, what is there for them? Even people that are a little bit further along, like me, that has got children and has got multiple jobs, thinking, my God, like, work just doesn't pay like it did before. So I can totally understand why younger people are thinking, well, why do I want to be in this system? Why not try communism? And yes, obviously, there's no documented countries, I think, where it's been a success. But that won't stop people trying. So people say, well, what we've got now isn't a success. It's not really serving me. It might be serving the boomers, might be serving the millionaires, but it's not serving the average person. Until you fix that, he's going to have a job on his hands trying to put the communist genie back in the bottle.
Oh yeah, well, Benedict, I think, Lewis says there people will be saying, well, why not communism? I mean, somebody has to knock it into their thick skulls. I mean, why not communism? Well, 100 million deaths for starters. Why not communism? Well, because of the excuse they have is that no other country's done communism properly. We need full communism, they say. I mean, somebody needs to educate these these dolts.
Yeah, you will always get that, though. You will always get the idealist who thinks that they've got some sort of special way that's not been tried before and that there is a different path. It's the same way that you get somebody who comes up with a new interpretation of the Bible every couple of decades and they think, oh, I found the solution, I found the truth, and let's set up a new church. That's something that happens in the United States quite a lot as well. The issue really is, though, talking about not letting communism win, you're sort of aiming there at a demographic, at a generation that is getting older, that is dying, that generation that remembers the height of the Cold War and the genuine threat posed by the Soviet Union and indeed by Cuba at one point. That's not really in the ascendancy anymore. Instead, what you have is, as you say, a younger generation that feels increasingly locked out, and that's not because they're lazy necessarily, it's because a lot of the industries that once upon a time they would have gone into have disappeared, or the jobs have been taken by migrants, or indeed those jobs have been offshored. Where have they been offshored to? They've been offshored, in many cases, to China over the last couple of years. Now, that is, of course, not, as it were, a properly communist country, but it is a country that likes to talk a lot about its own communism and how successful it is, and you can't really avoid how successful it has become by American corporations outsourcing a lot of business and a lot of jobs to that part of the world.
And also, so you can't really tackle it without tackling the AI problem, right? If AI is going to put everyone out of a job, you're going to have socialism by the back door anyway, because you're going to have to pay everyone a universal basic income.
Yeah, Elon Musk's wet dream, UBI. I mean, for me, it's just like a dystopian nightmare. Social credit, UBI. You behave, go and get your vaccine like an obedient little citizen, or you're not getting your UBI this week, you cretin. Yeah, I mean, I do like Musk, but I do wonder, I mean, let's talk about Neuralink. No, let's not. We're going down a rabbit hole. OK, thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Still ahead on The Late Show Live this evening.
Here's the real answer to your question, though, what you're saying. Was it good for our Constitution? Was it good for the American people? Was it good for my dad's legacy? No, on all counts.
Oh, who had the pleasure of looking at the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop all those years ago? The fake news media said that it was Russian disinfo. Well, it was true. Anyway, Hunter Biden's back on the scene. He's doing the rounds again. He says his father's decision to pardon him was damaging to his legacy, his dad's legacy. Was that fateful decision for the final... Sorry, was that fateful decision the final nail in the coffin for America's 46th president, Sleepy Joe Biden? We'll discuss that and Hunter Biden's big return in just a second. Here's your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's another sunny and fairly hot day to come in the south. Further north, though, a different story. We've got a band of rain slowly edging southwards with some brighter skies following from the north. So a fairly wet morning for parts of Northern Ireland, certainly central and southern Scotland. The rain just creeping its way southwards into northern England as well through this morning. It will turn more showery into the afternoon, and whilst there'll be a few showers in northern Scotland too, many other parts of Scotland will have a brighter day to come compared to yesterday. Now, across southern parts of the UK, particularly Wales, central and southern and southeastern parts of England, it will be a sunny and fairly hot day to come, temperatures into the low 30s for some of us. But I think in the north it will be a fresher feeling day compared to yesterday, and certainly across the Northern Isles, Shetland and Orkney will see quite breezy conditions once again, with a few showers lingering on into this evening. Otherwise, a mixture of cloud and sunny spells across the rest of Scotland and Northern Ireland this evening, and the rain tending to become a bit more showery and lighter across northern England too. Otherwise, a fine end to the weekend across Wales and the rest of England, with a good deal of late evening sunshine. And it's set to be a fairly warm night in the south, temperatures only slowly falling away after today's high temperatures, so remaining at between around 16 and 18 degrees Celsius perhaps in the towns and the cities. A fresher feeling night though further north, one or two showers still coming into the very far northeast of Scotland, but temperatures in the countryside in more northern areas probably falling down into the mid to high single figures. Now, there could be one or two mist and fog patches in the southwest of England first thing on Monday morning, but those will quickly clear, and then for most it's set to be a dry and fine day on Monday, a mixture of cloud but also some prolonged periods of sunshine. Still quite cool and breezy in the northeast of Scotland, and still one or two showers possible here. Otherwise though, temperatures in the high teens, low 20s in more northern parts of the UK, and not as hot as today in the south, but still very warm indeed.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. Hunter Biden, the son of former President Joe Biden, says his father's decision to pardon him was damaging to his legacy, admitting the move wasn't good for the Constitution, for the American people, or for the former president, his father himself. Speaking to BBC Newsnight, Hunter said the pardon was easily criticised, but argued it protected him from what he described as Donald Trump's revenge and retribution.
Issuing a pardon to you. I am the most privileged person as it relates to that there could possibly be. I was one of one, and I'm eternally grateful for it. I am eternally grateful for it because I think that Donald Trump has proven to be exactly who my dad thought he was going to be as it relates to the revenge and retribution that he would seek on his political enemies. He spent, in the first 100 days alone, he mentioned or criticized my dad or me 6 times a day. And if I was in the Federal Bureau of Probation, or God forbid, in a prison, then I think that he would have had a hold on my family that would make it not just unbearable, but incredibly unjust and unfair. Now, here's the real answer to your question, though, what you're saying. Was it good for our Constitution? Was it good for the American people? Was it good for my dad's legacy? No, on all counts. It was not. It's something that is easily criticized, and for good reason. And I can't pretend otherwise. All I know is that I'm grateful that he did it for me.
So, did that faithful decision near the tail end of Biden's premiership damage the reputation of America's 46th president? Let's speak to an American Democrat strategist, Richard Goodstein. Richard, good to see you. Hope you're doing well.
Hi, Ben.
Did it damage the reputation of Joe Biden, the pardon?
If you had to rank order the things that hurt Biden's legacy, I don't think this pardon was particularly high up on the list. Let me just editorialize for a second. You referred to Sleepy Joe Biden. If Joe Biden had fallen asleep 1/10 the number of times in public that Donald Trump has, that's all the press would be talking about. I think it's wild that Trump can sleep and sleep and sleep, and somehow or other he skates by. But that's another story. Look, I think it's odd that, Hunter Biden was pretty widely discredited over the years, and now all of a sudden he's this kind of font of wisdom. As I said, I think that Joe Biden was proven right by the prosecutions and persecutions of Fauci and James Comey and Adam Schiff, and the list goes on and on and on. So he was prescient, he saw it coming, and Hunter Biden probably would have been in the crosshairs had he not been pardoned. But again, I think if you had to rank order the things you can criticize Joe Biden for, that's not particularly high on the list.
OK, let's talk about Hunter himself. What do you think he's up to? Because he's been doing the rounds on various high-profile podcasts. He was on BBC Newsnight. He's returned to X, formerly Twitter. He's actually quite funny on X. He's got some witty remarks and retorts. What's his plan? What's he thinking? He's cleaned himself up. He stopped smoking crack and meeting prostitutes, I guess. But what's his plan?
Yeah, let's hope that that's true. My guess is that just as people on the right, we could start with Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and all these have monetized the following that they have. I think, if I had to guess, that Hunter Biden has some fantasy, I think it's unrealistic, of monetizing his fame. And he seems to need money, right? That's what the artwork was all about. And I think that's probably what he's trying to do here, is step out in some fashion. I think it's a pretty narrow audience, honestly, that's going to do anything that results in paying money to listen to Hunter Biden speak. But if I had to bet, that's all it is. And trying, to a certain extent, to redeem his father's reputation. But honestly, remarks like this about the pardon don't really help.
Yeah, and just finally, Richard, talking about Joe Biden, apparently, sad news, the cancer he was suffering has spread to his bones, according to Hunter. He revealed later in that interview with the BBC, saying that his dad's not doing too well. Just your thoughts on that?
You know, it's sad. He's not going to be able to raise money for his library. He's still making the rounds. He's going to public events and putting a good face on things. But here we are. Imagine had Joe Biden run and gotten reelected, we'd be having a sitting president going through this misery and God knows compromising his ability to do his job. And it just underscores what bad judgment he showed by deciding in 2022 or so that he was going to run for reelection again and then having to have this, catastrophe that ended up in that horrible debate and having to get out. It's just kind of a reminder that, at that age, people are fragile, and Biden should have kind of seen it coming.
Do you have any thoughts on the media here in America, the likes of Jake Tapper, who at the time was calling any suggestions of Joe Biden's poor or declining cognitive health as right-wing conspiracies? The likes of Jill Biden even, who she must have known what was going on. The Democrat apparatus must have known that Joe Biden wasn't in that good nick. They all went along and called everybody else conspiracy theorists and disgusting and so on. Jake Tapper now, shamelessly, he's written a book about how the media covered it all up. The man is shameless. But do you have any thoughts on all of that? They lied to the American people.
I do. Look, this was the same Joe Biden who, during his State of the Union address in 2024, that's the year that he dropped out and looked so horrible in that debate against Trump, he made Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and other members of Congress, Republicans who were just heckling him. He made them look silly. No teleprompter, unprompted, unscripted, from the podium. This was not somebody who was addled. This is somebody who ate Kevin McCarthy, the Republican House leader's lunch in negotiations over the budget. Again, in real time, unscripted and so forth. So, when people say, oh my God, he couldn't function, well, he looked to be functioning pretty well in those instances, which were only a couple months before that horrible debate against Trump. So I don't think it was like a cover up. I think he had good days and bad. People wanted to, look at the good and frankly kind of forget about the bad is my guess. I don't think it was as blatant a cover up as some would say.
Okay, great stuff, Richard. Good to see you. It's been a while,
Thank you,
but
Ben.
great to have you back on the show. We'll see you soon,
Well,
Richard.
great to be on with you. Thank you.
Thank you, mate. Thoughts, Hillary? I was about to call you Hillary Clinton. Sorry.
How dare you?
Sorry.
Hillary 1L. I used to say
Hunter Biden.
Yes.
There's so much talk about the Bidens. The laptop that was handed into the computer store, Hunter Biden's laptop, full of all sorts of horrible, nasty stuff, pictures of him and videos and
revolting.
Yeah, just all sorts of. We don't need to go over it.
Yes.
But the reaction from the media was, oh, it's Russian disinformation. We had intelligence chiefs. Was it 30 of them, all signing a letter saying, yes, this is a false laptop. It's Russian BS. That was all lies.
It was lies.
Twitter at the time refused to let anyone share the story. It was a New York Post story.
That's right.
The cover-ups.
Yep.
I know Richard says that it wasn't a cover-up with Joe Biden's health, but the whole machine, the whole establishment was in on this Hunter Biden, Joe Biden
The mainstream
conspiracy.
media, they were all on board.
And it was all true.
And Jake Tapper's done a 360, of course, on this. And I think that one of the things that Richard said, I don't always agree with everything that lovely Richard says, but I do definitely agree that probably the biggest issue here is that Hunter Biden wants to monetize this for the future, and he realizes he's got to backtrack to a certain degree, and that's why he said what he did. So I think that's at the crux of this. I do think it was elderly abuse. Obviously, Jill Biden, when she said, remember, I think one of the worst things she said was that she thought that Joe had had a heart attack during the debate, and she was so concerned. Meanwhile, she did absolutely nothing. If you thought your husband, if you loved your husband, and you thought he'd actually had a heart attack, wouldn't any sane, logical, sensible person then call some medic, do something about it? She did nothing. So she lied afterwards. She lied what she said. Otherwise, she would have done something. So I just can't believe the hypocrisy of it and the deceit of it. And as you mentioned, which is very apropos, the entire left-wing mainstream media machine was behind all this. And many people, last but not least, did have their Twitter accounts disabled, and they were blocked from Twitter because of pointing out the truth.
So the last act of the establishment was to give Hunter a pardon.
Yes.
From his father, Joe Biden. And whether it was signed with an auto pen, did Joe Biden even sign it himself?
Which actually is sort of like an admission. You don't give someone a pardon if you think they're innocent.
Well, what do you think of Hunter's comment saying that he thinks it was a stain on...
He thought that it was weaponised. I think, again, I agree with Richard that I think that he eventually wants to monetise things. He's trying to get back into the public limelight, and that's why he's got to do a sort of a mea culpa and or some explanation for this.
Niall, any thoughts on Hunter Biden? You ever met him?
I've got a few. I've never met him, thankfully, but a few thoughts on Hunter Biden. I mean, you know, he's an absolute scumbag, isn't he? Really? I mean, that's
is he trying to redeem himself by saying this pardon is?
I think that you know, Hunter Biden's trying to reinvent himself. The pardon that was given by his father, Joe Biden, is an absolute disgrace. One of the most disgraceful pardons in U.S. presidential history.
Well, Trump's pardoned loads of people.
Well, he has, but
I think more than anyone else.
But this is a pardon by Biden for his son. I mean, it's so blatantly obvious. I mean, you know, that this is an abuse of power by Joe Biden on an epic scale, and Hunter Biden, an incredibly bad news individual. Frankly, I mean, his track record speaks for himself, and you know, he's now trying to reinvent himself, actually, and. You know, Hunter Biden, I think, has been one of the most appalling, you know, characters in recent U.S. history on so many fronts, and you know, without a doubt, I think that you know, Joe Biden's pardon for for Hunter Biden will go down as one of the most horrific abusers of presidential power in modern times.
Okay, yeah, I just wonder what Hunter Biden is up to. I suspect Richard's probably right. Benedict and Lewis, let's speak to you. Benedict, I suspect Richard's probably right where he says he needs a bit of money and he's probably trying to capitalise on his platform. But maybe even a Democrat run in the years to come, who knows?
I mean, I think that that's possibly even beyond. I know that, you know, anything can happen in politics, but I think that would be pretty nuts if he was going to try and run. I think that if his father were to be aware of what was going on around him, he wouldn't thank him for this, because actually I think a lot of people probably would have forgotten about it in the grand scheme of things. Actually, I agree with Richard that there were many things actually that people will remember Joe Biden for, and that this actually probably isn't at the top of the list, and that actually it is sort of slightly gone by the wayside. And in many ways, that's an interesting thing to comment on, because you're right, Ben, the whole thing about Biden and the laptop and the cover-up that went with it, and it happened in real time before our eyes. We were all on social media, we were all on Twitter, and we saw the posts being censored, and we saw the messages saying you're not allowed to send this anymore, and we saw the accounts being deactivated, and everybody going along like, oh no, this is completely normal, this is just misinformation, this is just nasty Russian bots or whatever it might be. Pay no attention to what your lying eyes tell you. And we all saw it in real time, and we all looked at each other and thought, what on earth is going on? And to what you were saying just slightly earlier about one of Elon Musk's slightly loopier ideas about what the future should hold, I would go back to that time and say, wasn't it a good thing that he put his money where his mouth was, and he took that public platform out of the hands of the people that were controlling it? Because all of the things that have come out since Elon Musk bought Twitter that we would have never found out about, that people would have tried to suppress. The Jason Arde story that's currently doing the rounds in the UK, that's exactly the sort of thing that would have never got any traction if people weren't allowed to talk about it on Twitter. And it's exactly the sort of story that the powers that be would have suppressed if they'd got the chance. So that's one very positive thing that we've taken out of all of this.
Yeah, I think that purchase, was it $44 billion? I can't remember, of Twitter at the time, was just magnanimous, just massive. Catastrophic for the war against trying to finish off the West. Even like the Chris Philp, the shadow homesec in the channel this week, on all the stuff he was doing with the boats, with the French firing and so on. You wouldn't have ever heard about that, really. Lewis, any thoughts on Hunter Biden? What's he up to?
Yeah, I mean, look, the laptop was a massive scandal, so I haven't forgotten about that. One thing I would say, as a compassionate dad, if I was in that situation, the only reason anyone cared about Hunter Biden was because of who his dad was and the job that he had and the job that he wanted. I can kind of see the logic of being like, you know what, they're only going after you because of me. I'm going to write you a get out of jail free card. I actually do understand it. Don't think he should have done it, but as a dad, I understand the instinct. With regards to what he's up to now, I don't really know if he's trying to make money, because I feel like you would have launched your own podcast first and told your own story and got it that way rather than going to everyone else's. Okay. But, maybe he's not got a good business strategy.
Well, I will say, just to push back on that, I've got about 30 seconds left, so I'm very rushed. But he wasn't just targeted because he was Joe's son. There were all sorts of questionable business deals going on in Ukraine, in China, involving his father, emails talking about 20% for the big guy, aka Joe. I think it was more than just character assassination for that. Also, Hunter Biden's not here to defend himself, so if he's watching, Hunter, you're more than welcome on the show. Come down to DC, have a chat with me. I'm sure we'll probably get on, politics aside, and we can put the world to rights, as they say. Right, guys, thanks so much for your company. Lewis, Benedict, Niall, Hillary, and Hillary, what are you up to tomorrow? Playing golf?
Yes.
Oh, no, you were. Niall, what are you doing tomorrow?
Off to see Spider-Man.
The movie, great.
I saw Odyssey, which is a great film.
Good fun. Benedict, what are you doing tomorrow?
I'll be sleeping in really late. It's really late here, so I'll be getting up in the afternoon sometime.
It is.
And trying not to bake in the sun.
Thank you for your company. Lewis, what are you doing? Very quickly.
Same. Sleeping, try and spend time with the kids in the afternoon.
All right, I'm going to Utah for a week of filming. Thank you so much, viewers, listeners. Appreciate you, love you. I'll see you next week. Mwah, good night.
Yeah.
Have a good Sunday.
Good night.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's another sunny and fairly hot day to come in the south. Further north, though, a different story.